Chapter 484. While Qin Xuan and the others were happily returning to the Black Moon Combat Academy, and Su Yuluo was pestering Ningya for more leg meat, the Qin family finally understood everything that had happened in the carefree secret realm. Qin Haoshuan had indeed betrayed the human race and joined Zerg. After confirming this matter, Qin Yiming was furious and cursed before he could even finish reading the investigation results. Unfilial son. Unfilial son. You didn't want to be part of the human race and actually colluded with Zerg. Damned unfilial son. Seeing Qin Yiming so angry, the surrounding people sighed and didn't know what to say. They could still understand the matter of Little Zhong Mountain, but the matter of the insect eggs and the subsequent attack on Qin Xuan and the others really made them find any reason to defend Qin Haoshuan. Before knowing the truth, Qin Ju's mood was as painful as his mood was now. She could tolerate Qin Haoshuan targeting Qin Xuan again and again, but she couldn't tolerate Qin Haoshuan's betrayal of the entire human race. Big brother, please ask father to come out of seclusion. Although Qin Haoshuan was already dead, the matter had already happened. Their Qin family was bound to be targeted because of this. If they couldn't deal with this matter properly in time, it might cause a fatal blow to their Qin family. Now, only by asking Qin Chongxiao to come out of seclusion and use his name to intimidate everyone could the Qin family ensure that they could safely survive this calamity. Unfilial son. Qin Yiming's face was filled with grief and indignation. Father will probably be furious when he finds out about this. There's nothing we can do about it. Qin Ju was helpless. If the family is implicated at this time, there might be a change in the transformation of my 10th Legion into a battleship force. Hearing Qin Ju's words, Qin Yiming's expression couldn't help but turn ugly. Originally, their Qin family's reputation could be improved by a level with the transformation of the 10th Legion into a battleship force. Now that something had happened to Qin Haoshuan, it would be good if they could fall a little less, let alone reach a higher level. Haoshuan dragged the family down, and even dragged you down. Qin Yiming sighed. His entire person seemed to have aged dozens of years in an instant, and he was no longer as strong as before. Patriarch. Qin Hu suddenly took a step forward and whispered to Qin Yiming. I've read through the descriptions of the remaining people and realized that they all mentioned one thing. They once saw Qin Xuan slash through the teleportation portal from afar and saw a bug leg fall from the sky with their own eyes. Hearing Qin Hu's words, Qin Ju frowned slightly and asked, What are you trying to say? Qin Hu lowered his head slightly and said to Qin Ju, Su Kuang mentioned in his narration that the Zerg warrior said that the Zerg expert who is teleporting is the consul. When Qin Ju and Qin Yiming heard Qin Hu's words, they instantly thought of the meaning of the consul. Their bodies couldn't help but tremble, and their faces were filled with shock. Qin Yiming even took the story written by Su Kuang from Qin Hu's hands and read it carefully. Consul, it really is an Archon. Qin Yiming handed the notebook in his hand to Qin Ju. Qin Xuan actually has the leg of an Archon from Zerg. Qin Ju didn't look at the notebook. He looked at Qin Yiming with a deep gaze and asked, What do you want to do? Facing Qin Ju's question, Qin Yiming looked deeply at Qin Ju and said, As you can see, everyone thinks that Haoshuan is a traitor and Zerg's lackey. You know very well how big of a blow this matter will cause to our Qin family. However, Qin Xuan is the hero in everyone's hearts. He saved everyone in the carefree secret realm time and time again. If we can bring Qin Xuan back to the family, with the reputation he has accumulated in the carefree secret realm, it will definitely be able to offset the negative impact of Qin Xuan's matter on our Qin family. This is the best choice for us. Without waiting for Qin Ju to speak, Qin Yiming added, I can swear to you that as long as Qin Xuan is willing to return to the family, I will definitely nurture Qin Xuan as the future successor of the family and satisfy all his needs. Whoever dares to harm Qin Xuan will become the enemy of the entire Qin family. Facing Qin Yiming's words, Qin Ju was unmoved. He said coldly, So, do you want to add another premise? As a member of the Qin family, Qin Xuan should contribute the insect leg to the family, right? Hearing this, Qin Yiming's expression couldn't help but change slightly. Then he said, "You must know how precious that insect leg is. This insect leg won't be of any use in Qinchuan's hands. However, if you and I can obtain it, perhaps our Qin family will give birth to 2 more nascent soul cultivators. 3 nascent soul cultivators in one family. Do you know what this means? 3 nascent soul cultivators in one family. If their Qin family could really do this, then their Qin family would definitely become the undisputed #1 family in the Star Dragon Federation." Looking at Qin Yiming's excited expression, Qin Ju couldn't help but reveal a bitter expression. He said in a low voice, "Big brother, do you look like someone who just lost his son? Do you only have benefits in your eyes?" Hearing Qin Ju's words, Qin Yiming's expression immediately turned ugly. "Third sister, it's been so many years. Hasn't it always been your wish to welcome Qinchuan back to the family?" "That's right, this is my wish. However, I hope that you can treat Qinchuan as your own junior and relative, not as a vassal of the insect leg." Qin Ju was heartbroken. Ask yourself, if you didn't have the insect leg in your reputation, how would you fight Qinchuan? Would you be willing to let him return to the family and carefully nurture him? What nonsense are you talking about? Qin Yiming flew into a rage out of humiliation. Qin Ju's words had completely hit the sore spot in his heart. "Don't you know what I'm talking about?" Qin Ju looked at Qin Yiming sadly. "Big brother, I hope that Qinchuan can live outside. At least he has friends and teachers outside. It's not like here, where he can't get anything other than being used." "Bastard!" Qin Yiming was furious. "Am I doing this for my own sake? Am I not thinking for you, for the entire family? Don't say any more." Qin Ju shook his head. "I don't want to participate in the family's matters anymore. Do whatever you want. I'll leave later. Unless father summons me, I won't come back." After this incident, Qin Ju had completely given up on the family and his big brother. After saying this, Qin Ju didn't care about Qin Yiming's reaction. He turned around and walked out. Qin Yiming looked at Qin Ju's back as he left. He was unable to restrain his anger and ruthlessly smashed everything in his hands. When the surrounding people saw Qin Yiming's performance, their expressions were extremely complicated. After today, the sky might change. Chapter 485. Yi Residence. Yi Cheng looked at the football-sized thigh meat on the table with a serious expression. After a long time, he looked at Yi Qingning sitting beside him with difficulty and asked, "This was given to you by Qinchuan, and many of you have it?" Yi Qingning nodded. "Indeed, Qinchuan gave each of us a portion of this size. Grandfather, this thigh meat must be very valuable, right?" Although Yi Qingning knew that this thigh meat was a treasure, she didn't know its exact value. Hearing Yi Qingning's words, Yi Cheng looked at her with a subtle expression and said in a serious tone, "To be honest, if I were Qinchuan, I wouldn't be so generous as to give such a precious thing to so many of you. The value of this thigh meat is immeasurable. There aren't many things in our Star Dragon Federation that are more valuable than this thigh meat. Even if someone exchanged it with a half-stepped out tool, I might not agree." Yi Qingning looked at Yi Cheng in shock. From Yi Cheng's words, it wasn't hard to tell that the value of this thigh meat far exceeded that of a half-stepped out tool. Seeing the shock on Yi Qingning's face, Yi Cheng pursed his lips slightly and said to Yi Qingning, "Qingning, this thing has an immeasurable value to you. However, it can't be shown at this stage, so grandfather wants to make a deal with you." Hearing Yi Cheng's words, Yi Qingning was slightly taken aback. Then she smiled gently. "Grandfather, there's no need to use the word deal between us. If you need this thigh meat, then take it." "No." Yi Cheng shook his head and said, "Although I'm your grandfather, I can't just take away such a treasure. If I really do that, then I've lived for 100 years in vain." Hearing Yi Cheng's words, Yi Qingning didn't insist. Instead, she asked, "Grandfather, how do you plan to exchange it with me?" Yi Cheng smiled and said to Yi Qingning, "After hearing what happened in the Carefree Secret Realm, grandfather feels that it's too dangerous for a girl to travel alone. So, I'm going to give you the floating leaf." "Floating leaf?" Yi Qingning was extremely surprised. "Grandpa, has the floating leaf been successfully developed?" Yi Cheng nodded and said to Yi Qingning, The floating leaf has indeed been successfully developed, and it was developed based on your physical attributes. Therefore, the floating leaf is very suitable for you. At this point, Yi Cheng clapped his hands. With Yi Cheng's signal, someone soon pushed a 3-meter-tall trolley into the living room. When Yi Qingming saw this, she stood up excitedly and walked to the trolley. She reached out to remove the red silk covering the trolley. In a square transparent display case, a white and green battlesuit stood there quietly, showing off its elegance and power to Yi Qingming. Yi Cheng stood up and slowly walked to Yi Qingming's side. He chuckled and said to Yi Qingming, "This is the floating leaf Mark IV. It's been modified and improved 4 times on the basis of the original floating leaf. It's 98 meters tall and weighs 662 kilograms. It's equipped with 2 high-vibration swords, a Type 9 alloy shield, and 2 Meteor-class laser guns. Other than these basic weapon configurations, it also has an air-piercing cannon tailored for your sound attack attribute, as well as a dynamic stealth function. It's no exaggeration to say that the floating leaf Mark IV is both offensive and defensive. It's definitely one of the best battle suits in the world today." Hearing Yi Cheng's introduction of the floating leaf Mark IV, Yi Qingming's eyes flashed with joy. The floating leaf Mark IV was the most ideal battlesuit in her heart. It had all the characteristics she liked. In her opinion, the floating leaf Mark IV was obviously more worthy of her attention than the leg meat. This floating leaf Mark IV was originally prepared for you. Now Grandpa is using it to exchange for your leg meat. It can be said that I'm going all out. Yi Cheng reached out and patted Yi Qingming's shoulder lightly. He said to Yi Qingming, "Go and try it out." Okay, Yi Qingming agreed. She couldn't wait to pilot the floating leaf Mark IV and roam the sky. On the ground, Yi Cheng looked at Yi Qingming, who was familiarizing herself with the floating leaf Mark IV in the sky. He then looked down at the leg meat in his hand. A rare look of excitement flashed through his eyes. This piece of leg meat was actually not enough to satisfy Yi Cheng's needs. He wanted more. Starry Sky City was a city floating in the sky. It was where Starry Sky Academy was located. At the same time, it was also where Black Castle's headquarters was located. Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin, who had just returned from the Carefree Secret Realm, had just taken the intercity train back to Starry Sky City. At the station, they saw Zhou Meng, who they hadn't seen in a long time. Zhou Meng smiled warmly and gave the 2 bouquets of flowers in his hand to Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin. To be able to see the 2 of you come back safe and sound is really a very happy thing. Duan Yusin took the flowers from Zhou Meng and said with a smile, "Uncle, this time we had a great harvest in the Carefree Secret Realm." Yusin. Zhou Lin glanced at Duan Yusin. "If you have anything to say it when we get back." Hearing this, Zhou Meng gave Zhou Lin a subtle look. Duan Yusin didn't notice anything and nodded with a smile. "We won't go home first." Zhou Meng looked at Zhou Lin. "I'll take the 2 of you to see an elder." Hearing Zhou Meng's words, Zhou Lin nodded and said, "Okay." Since Zhou Lin had agreed, Duan Yusin naturally didn't have any objections. The 3 of them sat in Zhou Meng's flying shuttle and flew towards the western district of Starry Sky City. The western district of Starry Sky City was a civilian area. Most of the people who lived here were ordinary people. Usually, Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin rarely came here, so they didn't know that there was an elder here that they had never seen before. Zhou Meng drove the flying shuttle and stopped in front of a nursing home. Looking at the dilapidated gate of the nursing home, he pursed his lips and said to Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin, "We're here. The elder is here." Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin walked down the flying shuttle and looked at the nursing home with curiosity. Who was the elder who lived here that made Zhou Meng act so strangely? Zhou Meng walked forward and opened the gate of the nursing home with his fingerprint. The 3 of them walked into the nursing home's reception hall, but they didn't see a single staff member. The entire reception hall was so quiet that they could hear each other's breathing clearly. Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin were not used to such an environment, but Zhou Meng was used to it. He walked inside and shouted as he walked, "Captain, I'm here to see you." When Zhou Lin heard Zhou Meng call her captain, She seemed to have thought of something, and the expression on her face couldn't help but become subtle. Chapter 486. Captain, where are you? Zhou Meng shouted loudly as he walked inside. After passing through the reception hall and a long corridor, he finally found the person he was looking for in the garden. It was a silver-haired old man dressed in blue and white striped clothes. The old man was holding a kettle in his hand. He was bending over and carefully watering the flower bed. He looked meticulous, as if he didn't hear Zhou Meng's shouts at all. He was unmoved. When Zhou Meng saw this, he didn't go forward to disturb him. He just stood there quietly, patiently waiting for the old man to finish watering the flowers. Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin, who were walking behind Zhou Meng, couldn't help but look at each other. Neither of them spoke. After a while, when there wasn't a single drop of water left in the kettle, the old man finally stopped watering the flowers. He slowly straightened his body and looked at Zhou Meng. He said calmly, "I've already told you many times, don't call me Captain anymore." "Captain." Zhou Meng smiled and still called him Captain. "I brought 2 juniors from my family to visit you." Hearing this, the old man's gaze slowly shifted to Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin. After a moment of sizing them up, he said to Zhou Meng, "They're both good seedlings." Hearing the old man's words, Zhou Meng chuckled and said to the old man, "Captain, the 2 of them have just returned from the unfettered secret territory." The unfettered secret territory. A trace of nostalgia flashed in the old man's eyes. That's a very dangerous place. In the eyes of those who had never been to the unfettered mystery realm, the unfettered mystery realm was a blessed land, a good place full of opportunities. However, in the eyes of those who had really entered the unfettered mystery realm and experienced some things, the unfettered mystery realm was definitely an extremely dangerous place. The slightest carelessness could lead to death. The old man walked to a bench at the side and sat down. He said to Zhou Meng, "Why did you bring the 2 of them here today?" Zhou Meng walked to the old man's side and said, "Captain, a lot of things happened in the unfettered secret territory. Let the 2 of them tell you about it." Before meeting Zhou Lin, Zhou Meng had already learned about what happened in the carefree secret realm through Hay City's intelligence system. However, he didn't know much about the details. This time, he brought Zhou Lin here to tell the old man in detail about what happened in the carefree secret realm. At Zhou Meng's signal, Zhou Lin sat down in front of the old man and began to recount what had happened in the unfettered secret realm. When she mentioned that Zerg had arrived at the carefree secret realm through the teleportation channel, the old man's emotionless face finally showed some changes. Millions of years have passed. Has Zerg finally appeared again? The old man looked at Zhou Lin with a slightly complicated expression. "You were able to walk out of the carefree secret realm alive under the threat of Zerg. Not bad." After the old man sighed with emotion, Zhou Lin continued her previous narration. When she mentioned what Qin Chuan had done, the old man's face changed again. He looked at Zhou Lin in surprise and asked, "Are you sure you remember correctly? That young man named Qin Chuan really defeated Zerg alone?" Zhou Lin nodded. "It's true." After getting a positive answer, the old man said with some relief, "A hero comes from a young man. Not bad, not bad. What else?" Obviously, the old man was now very interested in what happened in the carefree secret realm. He began to take the initiative to ask about what happened next. When he heard Zhou Lin say that Qin Chuan had entered the carefree house, the old man's face suddenly became very excited. He asked Zhou Lin, "What did he get in the carefree house?" Other than some elixirs, there was nothing else. The 3 treasures in the carefree house were all obtained by other people. I was lucky to get one. You got one too. This time, the person who spoke was Zhou Meng. He did not know that Zhou Lin had obtained a treasure, so he was very surprised. Zhou Lin nodded and said, "The treasure I got is called the Metal Origin. I don't know what it does." "So it's the Metal Origin." The old man seemed to know about the Metal Origin. He looked at Zhou Lin and said, "Little girl, your luck is not bad." Zhou Lin hurriedly asked, "Senior, you know about the Metal Origin?" The old man nodded and replied, "The Metal Origin is not a treasure, but a kind of natural origin. It may not be very useful in battle, but it is very beneficial to your future. As for the specific benefits, you will have to figure it out yourself. Zhou Lin thought for a moment and said to the old man, "Thank you for your guidance, senior." "All right, let's continue talking." This time, the old man did not interrupt Zhou Lin. He waited until Zhou Lin finished talking, then looked at Zhou Lin with a subtle gaze and said, "The young man called Qin Xuan is very talented and has great luck. To be able to obtain a consul's leg at this stage will be very beneficial to his future. However, high rewards are also accompanied by high risks. An ordinary man is innocent, but treasuring a jade ring will arouse the envy of others. This young man has obtained such an amazing treasure. If it is not handled properly, it may cause a disaster." Zhou Meng listened to the old man and asked, "Captain, what do you think of Qin Xuan?" The old man turned to look at Zhou Meng and said seriously, "If this young man doesn't die, he will have great achievements in 100 years. Zhou Meng looked at the old man deeply and said, "Captain, do you remember the call I gave you more than a year ago? I told you that I found a good seedling. That good seedling is Qin Xuan." Hearing Zhou Meng's words, the old man's eyes suddenly lit up but soon dimmed again. He shook his head and said to Zhou Meng, "I'm old, I don't have such thoughts." "Captain, you're old, but not old. I know you've always wanted to come out. Maybe this is your chance." Zhou Meng said seriously to the old man, "Lin Lin's leg meat from Qin Xuan can definitely help you change your body, cure your chronic disease, and return to the peak." "Zhou Meng, that's your daughter's thing. It's not yours, and it's not mine." The old man shook his head again. "Don't say any more. I've made up my mind." Seeing the old man's firm attitude, Zhou Meng's face couldn't help but show a touch of sadness. At this moment, Zhou Lin suddenly said, "I remember that those who have made great contributions to Black City can ask for any reward from Black City. If you want to change your body and cure your chronic disease, I think heavenly pure water is more suitable." Zhou Meng smiled bitterly. "Heavenly pure water is rare in the world. Captain, what you need is not a small amount. We don't have so many merits to exchange with Black City." "You don't, but I do." Zhou Lin looked at Zhou Meng deeply. "I forgot to tell you that I also got the key to the unfettered secret territory." Chapter 487. On the airship, Qin Xuan stood in front of the window, looking at the elf city that was already faintly visible outside the window, and was slightly absent-minded. Just last night, he told Ningya about what happened between him and Yaorao, wanted to listen to Ningya's advice, but Ningya's advice was to let him do as he saw fit. This made Qin Xuan somewhat not know whether to laugh or cry. It was really the first time he met a teacher who didn't do the right thing after receiving benefits. "What are you thinking about?" Lu Zi slowly walked to Qin Xuan's side. Looking at the elf city outside the window, she asked Qin Xuan, "We are going to return to school soon. You seem to be very emotional." Qin Xuan faintly smiled, then said to Lu Zi, "I am indeed very emotional. Since the ranking competition of the 6 grade academies until today, I haven't returned to school for almost half a year. Your classmates miss you very much. You have always been number 001 in their hearts." Lu Zi smiled, then reached out her hand to comb her hair that had just been washed, and asked Qin Xuan, "What are your plans for the next few days? Maybe I don't have the final say on this. No one knows what kind of wave Zerg's reappearance will cause." Qin Xuan pursed his lips, then said to Lu Zi, "Maybe disaster will come again soon, and none of us will be spared. Actually, I have always been very curious about what the world outside our world is like." Lu Zi looked up at the sky. "Except for white clouds and blue sky, I can't see anything. What about you?" Qin Xuan also made an action of looking up, and said with emotion, "But sooner or later, we will be able to see everything." Lu Zi turned to look at Qin Xuan, the expression in her eyes subtle, and said softly, "In the past, I felt that your light was too dazzling, and maybe soon I wouldn't be able to continue following in your footsteps, and would be left far behind by you. But this time, in the carefree secret realm, I obtained the purple star divine pupil, and I am suddenly full of hope for the future. I think maybe if I work a little harder, I will be able to walk a very long path with you." Qin Xuan heard these words, then turned to look at Lu Zi, and said with a complicated tone, Actually, your life shouldn't just walk with me. You should also have your own color. Even now, Qin Chuan still remembered the first time he had met Lu Zi. At that time, Lu Zi was an extremely proud girl, beautiful and moving, and did not care about trifles. If they had not entered the Black Moon Combat Academy together, he felt that Lu Zi would definitely be a different person now that they met again. There's only one sun in the sky, and all the stars revolve around the sun. Are the other stars not dazzling aside from the sun? Lu Zi smiled, then said to Qin Chuan, I have never thought of becoming a sun. Lu Zi's dream was actually very simple. She only hoped to become the star closest to the sun. She did not need to be dazzling. She just wanted to accompany the sun for a long time. I can't win against you. Qin Chuan was helpless and could only let Lu Zi do as she wished. When the flying ship slowly landed in the elf city, Ningya found Qin Chuan. She casually handed a piece of paper to Qin Chuan and said, This is the person who contacted me on our way back to the academy. Everyone wants to make a deal with you. Can you guess what the deal is about? Qin Chuan thought for a moment, then asked. It should be related to the insect leg. In Qin Chuan's opinion, the only thing on his body that everyone coveted was the insect leg. That's right, it's the insect leg. Ningya gently smiled, then said to Qin Chuan, There's also something very interesting. The Qin family wants you to return to the family, and they have promised to give you the position of successor. In other words, when Qin Yiming retires, you could become the head of the Qin family. Hearing the Qin family's conditions, Qin Chuan could not help but be stunned. After a while, he said, Their conditions should be for me to hand over the insect leg, right? That's right. Ningya nodded. The Qin family's table manners are really too ugly. If the Qin family had taken out some substantial benefits to make a deal with Qin Chuan, Ningya would not have said anything. However, the Qin family wanted to gain something without risking anything. They wanted Qin Chuan to hand over the insect leg with the title of future successor that could be revoked at any time. They were simply treating Qin Chuan like a 3-year-old child. There was no sincerity at all. Also, Qin Zhu left the Qin family again. It is said that before leaving, he had a big quarrel with Qin Yiming. I think she probably doesn't agree with Qin Yiming's way of doing things. Ningya looked at Qin Chuan and said with a smile, Your aunt is still very partial to you. She has always been such a person who upholds her own principles and will not be easily swayed. Qin Chuan smiled. This is also why I don't hate her. People born in aristocratic families would inevitably be infected with some bad habits. For example, for the sake of benefits, Qin Yiming could put down his old face and take the initiative to invite Qin Chuan to return to the Qin family. He even wanted to establish Qin Chuan as the future successor of the Qin family. He was really unscrupulous. You can rest assured and leave the insect leg with me first. I will definitely give you a big surprise in the future. Ningya reached out and patted Qin Chuan's shoulder gently. She said seriously, In addition, after we go back this time, I plan to take you to see your advisor. Advisor? Qin Chuan was stunned. The old dean? Who else can your advisor be other than the old dean? Ningya smiled. He is also my adoptive father. His name is Ning Zhongtian. Qin Chuan was very interested in the legendary old dean of the Black Moon Combat Academy. He asked Ningya, Should I bring some gifts for our first meeting? That's not necessary. Ningya smiled. There is no better gift than the leg meat. Hearing this, Qin Chuan nodded in understanding. The insect leg was precious, and it was probably an extremely rare treasure even for a nascent soul cultivator like the old principal. Using the leg meat as a first meeting gift to the old principal was indeed a very suitable choice. I have already divided the leg meat. Apart from the 2 portions that Su Yuluo took, there are a total of 30 portions. I may need about 10 portions, and the old dean also needs about 10 portions. You can only use the remaining 10 portions. Ningya looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle expression and asked, What do you think of my arrangement? I have no objections. Qin Chuan shrugged. It's already good enough to have 10 portions. Hearing Qin Chuan's answer, Ningya's face lit up with an extremely happy smile. She said to Qin Chuan, Teacher, I love your appearance as the child of wealth the most. You are so cute. Qingchuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The child of wealth was too unpleasant to hear. Chapter 488. Walking on the Bluestone Road, Qingchuan looked at the shops on both sides of the street, a trace of nostalgia flashing through his eyes. It had been a long time since he last walked on the streets of Azure Ancient City. Everything around him made him feel very comfortable and at ease. Ningya wore an elegant moon-white cheongsam. As she walked, she said to Qingchuan, "When you see your grandmaster later, don't be nervous and don't be reserved. He's a very easy person to get along with." Qingchuan nodded and asked Ningya, "Teacher, what's grandmaster's current cultivation level?" Nascent soul cultivators were also divided into different levels. Qingchuan was very curious about the level of this legendary grandmaster. Ningya smiled proudly and replied, "Currently, our Star Dragon Federation has a total of 24 nascent soul cultivators. Your grandmaster can be ranked in the top 3. You've seen Qin Chongxiao from the Qin family and Chun Xianfeng from the Profound Sky sect. These two people are also nascent soul cultivators, but even if they joined forces, they might not be a match for your grandmaster." Hearing Ningya's words, Qingchuan had a rough understanding of the old dean's strength. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the old dean's strength had already touched the peak of this world. "Teacher, what's above the nascent soul stage?" Qingchuan looked at Ningya curiously. "Have you seen anyone more powerful than the nascent soul stage? This matter is still too far away for the current you. There's no need to know too much about it." Ningya looked deeply at Qingchuan and said, "When you reach the nascent soul stage, you'll naturally know what's above it." As the teacher and disciple spoke, they arrived at the Black Moon Combat Academy's student union. It was currently a holiday, so there was no one in the student union. Ningya led Qingchuan all the way to the deepest part of the student union and arrived in front of a library. Looking at the library in front of him, Qingchuan was somewhat surprised. This was the first time he'd heard that there was such a library in the student union. Ningya took the lead and walked into the library. Qingchuan followed closely behind. The library was very big and quiet. There was no one reading. There was only a white-haired old man wearing glasses who was bent over the table and writing. Every stroke was extremely neat. Qingchuan saw the old man at first glance, and also realized that this old man might be the rumored old Dean Ning Zhongtian. He sized the old man up with a curious gaze, but did not find anything special. No matter how he looked at it, this was a very ordinary old man. "Teacher," Ningya slowly walked in front of the old man and said, "I've brought my student to visit you." When the old man heard Ningya's words, he slowly put down the brush in his hand and raised his head to reveal a very benevolent face. He chuckled and said to Ningya, "So it's you, little girl. I didn't think that you'd become a teacher." As he spoke, Ning Zhongtian turned to look at Qingchuan. When he saw Qingchuan, his gaze paused for a moment before he lightly said, "I smell that old dragon's aura on you. It seems that you've gained quite a bit from him." When he heard Ning Zhongtian's words, Qingchuan's expression could not help but change. He never thought that Ning Zhongtian would be able to discover one of his greatest secrets with just one glance. A very special young man. Ning Zhongtian evaluated Qingchuan again before turning to Ningya and chuckling, "Your student hasn't learned anything from you, but he's met quite a few good teachers outside." Ningya looked at Qingchuan in surprise when she heard this. She then looked at Ning Zhongtian and asked, "Teacher, what have you discovered?" "I can't say." Ning Zhongtian smiled and shook his head. He extended a skinny finger and pointed at Qingchuan. "After all, this is your student's secret. It's not convenient for me to say." Seeing that Ning Zhongtian did not want to say anything, Ningya did not ask any further. She simply said to Ning Zhongtian, "Teacher, this time, your grand disciple has brought you a gift." As she spoke, Ningya took out a piece of thigh meat from her storage ring and placed it in front of Ning Zhongtian. She asked with a smile, "Teacher, what do you think of this gift?" Ning Zhongtian looked at the thigh meat in front of him and felt the shocking energy fluctuations emanating from it. He could not help but narrow his eyes and ask, "What happened outside?" Not outside, in the unfettered secret realm. Ningya briefly told Ning Zhongtian what had happened in the unfettered secret realm. After listening to Ningya, Ning Zhongtian once again looked at Qin Xuan and praised, "The younger generation will surpass us in time. This gift is extremely valuable. This old man should not have accepted it." Qin Xuan chuckled and said to Ning Zhongtian, "Grandmaster, this is a token of my appreciation. Please accept it." "That's right, teacher. This is Qin Xuan's token of appreciation. Moreover, Qin Xuan has other things to ask of you." As she spoke, Ningya took out the hollowed-out insect leg and placed it on the floor of the library. She then said to Ning Zhongtian, "Teacher, the outer shell of this insect leg is definitely an excellent material for making battle armor. With your craftsmanship, you should be able to tailor a set of B-grade battle armor with superior performance for Qin Xuan, right?" Ning Zhongtian took a deep look at the insect leg and nodded. "That's right. It is indeed an excellent material." Qin Xuan, who was standing to the side, heard the conversation between Ningya and Ning Zhongtian. He could not help but be pleasantly surprised. He did not expect Ningya to bring him such a huge surprise. Ningya turned to Qin Xuan and said to Qin Xuan, "Qin Xuan, I can tell you very responsibly that my teacher is definitely the best weapon refiner in the world. If he tailors a battle armor for you, you will definitely be able to do whatever you want in the golden elixir stage with this battle armor." Qin Xuan heard this and immediately said to Ning Zhongtian, "Thank you, Grandmaster. No need to thank me." Ning Zhongtian smiled. "You gave me such a precious gift. It is only right that I tailor a battle armor for you. However, it will be difficult for you to use the outer shell of this insect leg to make a battle armor with your current level. You will need to be at least in the golden elixir stage." C-grade battle armor was suitable for cultivators in the foundation establishment stage. B-grade battle armor was suitable for cultivators in the golden elixir stage. The higher grade A-grade battle armor was tailor-made for cultivators in the nascent soul stage. It was extremely rare. The outer shell of this insect leg was actually enough to be used as an A-grade battle armor material. However, if it was used to make B-grade battle armor, it would definitely be able to create the strongest battle armor among B-grade battle armors. I will definitely work hard to cultivate. In order to be able to control his own battle armor as soon as possible, Qin Xuan decided to work hard in the coming days to pass the Dan Tribulation and reach the golden elixir stage as soon as possible. "All right, teacher, I think Qin Xuan is now qualified to become a candidate for heir of Kunlun," Ningya suddenly said to Ning Zhongtian. "I hope that teacher can write a recommendation letter for Qin Xuan." Chapter 489. This was the second time Qin Xuan had heard someone talk about the preparation of an heir. He looked at Ning Zhongtian curiously, thinking about the recommendation letter. Ning Zhongtian heard Ningya's request, but did not agree immediately. He looked at Qin Xuan and studied Qin Xuan seriously. Then, he said to Qin Xuan, "With your luck and ability, you have the right to become a preparation of an heir. However, becoming a preparation of an heir may not be a good thing." Hearing Ning Zhongtian's words, Qin Xuan asked curiously, "What does a preparation of an heir need to do?" "You need to work hard to cultivate and improve your ability," Ning Zhongtian answered calmly. "The stage for preparation of an heir is not in this world. Although the outside world is full of opportunities, it is also full of danger." Hearing this, Qin Xuan couldn't help but look at Ningya hesitantly. He wasn't particularly interested in becoming a reserve heir of Kunlun's field. Facing Qin Xuan's gaze, Ningya pursed her lips and said, "Qin Xuan, do you remember what I told you before? It's about the cause of your parents' death. If you cannot become a preparation of an heir, then you will never have the right to know the truth." Hearing Ningya's words, Qin Xuan's eyes narrowed. He did not think that becoming a preparation of an heir would be related to his father's death. "I am willing to become a preparation of an heir." Without any consideration, Qin Xuan made his decision without hesitation. Ning Zhongtian looked at Qin Xuan and said calmly, "Once you make a decision, you will not have the chance to regret it in the future. I will not regret it." Qin Xuan's tone was resolute. This concerned the cause of his parents' death. He could not back down. nor could he regret it. Ning Zhongtian looked at Qin Chuan meaningfully. After a moment of silence, he said, "If that's the case, then I promise to write you a letter of recommendation. With this letter, you can become a reserve heir of Kunlun." Qin Chuan immediately said to Ning Zhongtian, "Thank you, Grandmaster." The gift had been delivered, the surprise had been received, and the recommendation letter had been obtained. Ningya left the library with Qin Chuan and walked back to school. Along the way, Ningya was silent, and so was Qin Chuan. Neither of them spoke until they reached the school gate. Then, Ningya stopped and looked at Qin Chuan, who had been waiting impatiently for a long time. "What I can tell you now is that the person back then was also a preparatory heir of Kunlun's field. I don't know how far he has progressed. His surname is Shangwan, and his name is Yuan Hao." Hearing Ningya's words, Qin Chuan was silent for a moment and asked, "What happened back then?" Ningya sighed faintly and shook her head. "I don't know what happened back then. You need to investigate the truth yourself." "I understand." Qin Chuan looked deeply at Ningya. "Thank you, Master. You don't have to thank me. You should thank yourself. If it weren't for your amazing performance, I wouldn't have let you know about these things." Ningya said to Qin Chuan in a complicated tone, "Don't be impulsive. With your strength, you'll get your revenge sooner or later. Don't be impatient. Do you understand?" Qin Chuan nodded. I know what to do. All right, go back and rest. You can make your own arrangements for the rest of the time." Ningya handed Qin Chuan a chip. "There are 2 rune arrays in here. Study them well." Qin Chuan stood where he was and watched Ningya's figure disappear into the darkness. He held the chip tightly in his hand and murmured, "Shangwan Yuan Hao." According to the normal procedure, if Qin Chuan wanted to become a reserve heir of Kunlun's field, he would have to go through a test. However, because he had received a recommendation letter from Ning Zhongtian, Qin Chuan could become a reserve heir of Kunlun's field without the test. This way, Qin Chuan had a lot of time to spare. After learning that the registration time for reserve heir of Kunlun's field was 3 months later, Qin Chuan decided to go to the demon realm. If he wanted to go there, he needed someone's help. After saying goodbye to his friends, Qin Chuan returned to the city of elves and took the inner-city train to Dongshan City. 2 days later, he saw Wang Bo and Wang Bo's girlfriend, Wei Zixin, whom he hadn't seen in months. Seeing Wang Bo and Wei Zixin snuggling up to each other sweetly, Qin Chuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I really came all the way here. I didn't expect to be stuffed with dog food before I even had a chance to eat." Wang Bo chuckled and said to Qin Chuan proudly, "Little Chuan, you may be ahead of me in other aspects, but when it comes to finding a girlfriend, I'm ahead of you. You have to hurry up. Don't be single when we have children." Although Wei Zixin had seen Qin Chuan before, they didn't have much of a relationship at that time, so they didn't greet each other. Now that she was Wang Bo's girlfriend, of course, she had to get to know Qin Chuan. "Hello, I'm Wei Zixin, a local from Dongshan." Wei Zixin looked at Qin Chuan and smiled. "Wang Bo often tells me about you. I know you're very powerful." "Not that powerful." Qin Chuan chuckled and said to Wei Zixin, "Wang Bo is usually careless. You have to take care of him." The 3 of them chatted and ate. When the atmosphere was lively, a tall man suddenly walked in from outside the restaurant and sat down next to Qin Chuan. He reached out and hooked Qin Chuan's neck, saying loudly, "Brat, I heard you got a lot of benefits in the carefree secret realm." Qin Chuan looked at the man sitting next to him and grinned. "Big cousin, how did you know I was here? What don't your big cousin know?" The man laughed. "I smelled your scent before you even entered the city." The man Qin Chuan called Big Cousin was none other than the Lion Duke. Qin Chuan came to Dongshan City this time to visit Wang Bo. His main purpose was to find the Lion Duke. Wang Bo looked at Qin Chuan and the Lion Duke, who had their arms around each other's shoulders. He couldn't help but feel puzzled. He had known Qin Chuan for so many years, but he had never heard of Qin Chuan having such a big cousin. He couldn't help but ask curiously, "Qin Chuan, who is this?" "Let me introduce you. This is Shi Shuai, my big cousin. He's a distant relative. You've never seen him before." Qin Chuan chuckled and introduced the Lion Duke's identity to Wang Bo. Although he trusted Wang Bo, the Lion tribe had just fought a war with Dongshan City not long ago. Although that war had nothing to do with the Lion Duke, it was better not to let Wang Bo know about his identity. That's right, I'm his big cousin. The Lion Duke looked at Wang Bo with a smile. You can call me big cousin from now on. You don't have to be polite with me. Chapter 490. Just as Wang Bo was about to greet Lion Duke, the optical computer on his wrist suddenly flashed. He immediately turned it on and looked at Qin Chuan. Then, he said apologetically, Qin Chuan, the army is calling me back. I can't accompany you. Me too. Wei Zixin looked at her optical computer and said to Qin Chuan, it looks like there's a very urgent task to be issued. It's okay. You don't have to worry about me. Qin Chuan immediately said, you guys go do your business. We'll talk again when there's time. Wang Bo and Wei Zixin said goodbye to Lion Duke, then hurriedly got up and ran out of the restaurant. Looking at the two leaving figures, Qin Chuan gently shook his head and said to Lion Duke, fortunately, both of them are military doctors. If they were in different departments, I'm afraid it would be difficult to see them. Young people nowadays are looking for a partner. Aren't they looking for a common topic? Lion Duke laughed and reached out to grab the lamb chop on the table and took a big bite. His mouth was full of oil. Qin Chuan looked at Lion Duke eating and drinking and asked with a smile, big cousin, can you send me to the monster realm? Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lion Duke stopped eating the lamb chop, then looked at Qin Chuan with a puzzled look and asked, you want to go to the monster realm? What are you going to do there? Qin Chuan thought for a moment and decided to tell the truth. I met a monster realm friend in the carefree secret realm. She invited me to Mount Tianyao as a guest. Before Qin Chuan could finish his words, Lion Duke interrupted him with a surprised look. Mount Tianyao? Who invited you to Mount Tianyao? Her name is Yaorao. The monster realm calls her Princess Yaorao. Qin Chuan asked Lion Duke with a little curiosity, big cousin, do you know Yaorao? I was wondering who it was. It turned out to be that little girl. Lion Duke chuckled. If she really did invite you to Mount Tianyao, that might be true. But then again, how did you two meet? It's a long story. Qin Chuan gave a wry smile and said to Lion Duke, in short, I need to go to Mount Tianyao within the next 6 months. I don't know how to enter the monster realm, so I can only rely on you. A look of contemplation appeared on Lion Duke's face. He thought for a moment, then said to Qin Chuan, I can only tell you how to enter the demon realm, but I won't accompany you. To be honest, I have no intention of ever returning to the demon realm. Hearing Lion King's answer, Qin Chuan looked at Lion King and said, big cousin, what if I offer you something that will make you happy? What if I hire you to accompany me into the demon world, or even Mount Tianyao? Are you kidding me? Lion Duke looked at Qin Chuan with a playful expression. I don't think you have anything that will make me happy. Qin Chuan wasn't in a hurry to explain. He got up and paid the bill, then took Lion Duke to the room upstairs. Lion Duke followed behind Qin Chuan. Looking at Qin Chuan's confident look, he couldn't help but wonder if Qin Chuan really had something good in his hands. It was a pity that Lion Duke didn't know much about what happened in the carefree secret realm. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such doubts now. After entering the room, Qin Chuan didn't say much nonsense. He simply took out a piece of thigh meat and placed it in front of Lion Duke. Big cousin, what do you think of this? Lion Duke looked at the thigh meat in front of him in shock. After a while, he suddenly looked up at Qin Chuan and asked, where did you get this? Qin Chuan laughed when he heard this. He reached out and pushed the thigh meat to Lion Duke, then answered his question. Naturally, I got it from the carefree secret realm. Didn't you just say that you heard that I got a lot of benefits from the carefree secret realm? This is one of those benefits. Lion Duke stared straight at Qin Chuan and asked, are you sure you want to give this to me? It's not for you. It's for you to protect me in the demon world. Qin Chuan smiled and asked, what do you think? Yes. Lion Duke agreed and asked, how much of this do you have? This thing is so precious. I don't have much, but if you need it urgently, I can still give you some. Qin Chuan had long expected that Lion Duke would never be satisfied with just a piece of worm thigh meat. He would definitely want more. He didn't mind giving Lion Duke a few more pieces of worm thigh meat. Anyway, he didn't need it at this stage. It was better to use it in exchange for some favors. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lion Duke took a deep look at Qin Chuan and said, I do want more of this thing, but I won't take advantage of you. This trip to the demon world will be a gift. If you give me this, I can help you do one thing. Even if you are besieged by 10 Yuanying stage cultivators, I will save you from the sea of suffering. You mean this thing can be exchanged for your help unconditionally? That's right, Lion Duke said without hesitation. 1 for 1. Deal. Qin Chuan was overjoyed. In addition to the previous piece of thigh meat, he took out 2 more pieces of thigh meat and placed them in front of Lion Duke. Big cousin, I want 3 chances for you to help me. Lion Duke waved his sleeve and took the 3 pieces of thigh meat. Then he looked at Qin Chuan meaningfully and said, Deal. After completing the transaction, Lion Duke smiled and said to Qin Chuan, You just put a treasure in front of me like this, and even expose that you have more treasures. Aren't you afraid that I will be greedy and kill you directly? Qin Chuan smiled when he heard this. If you really do that, then it means that I've misjudged you. I won't die in vain. I am not a human, I am a demon. Lion Duke laughed and said very happily, How many years has it been? You're the first person to trust me so much. Lion Duke rose in his youth. From the time he became a demon general, there was no family or friendship around him. Everywhere he went, there was only interest. There was no sentiment to speak of. Growing up in such an environment, Lion Duke's temperament was greatly affected. He never trusted anyone easily. He could get along well with Qin Chuan because he was confident in his strength. In the face of absolute strength, no matter what tricks Qin Chuan wanted to play, it would be useless. But what he didn't expect was that Qin Chuan didn't have any intention of playing tricks with him. Instead, he was surprisingly honest. Trust is mutual. Qin Chuan smiled slightly. If Big Cousin didn't trust me, you wouldn't have appeared in front of me again and again. Although we are of different races, I have always regarded you as a friend. Chapter 491. The spirit realm is in the east, and the human realm is in the west. There is a mountain between the human realm and the spirit realm. You just have to cross the mountain to reach the spirit realm. The spirit realm is not a single mountain. It is made up of many mountains. These mountains are called the spirit realm. There are also some aborigines in Jia Mountain, both humans and demons, but they are different from us. They get along very well. When there is a chance, I will take you to the city of your aborigines to take a look. You will definitely be surprised. On the way to the spirit realm, Lion Lord kept telling Qin Chuan about the spirit realm. Qin Chuan listened very carefully. If it wasn't for Lion Lord, he wouldn't have known the spirit realm was not a single mountain. He wouldn't have known there were natives in the spirit realm. Everything about the spirit realm was very strange to Qin Chuan. The closer they got to the spirit realm, the more barren the land became. There was not even a small animal to be seen. Qin Chuan was very curious about this, so he asked Lion Lord, Why is there not a single person here? Are you really a human? You don't know that? Lion Lord looked at Qin Chuan with suspicion. The spirit realm is dangerous everywhere. There are no resources here. Who would want to live in a place like this? When Qin Chuan heard this, he scratched his head awkwardly and said, I'm ignorant. You young people should come out more often. You should see how big the world is. You won't be able to achieve anything if you just practice. I admire you for that. If it were someone else, they wouldn't have the courage to go to the spirit realm. Lion Lord wasn't deliberately praising Qin Chuan. He really thought Qin Chuan was a very good young man. He was mature, brave, and talented. He was very good in all aspects. There was nothing wrong with him. If the reason why he took Qin Chuan away from the Elf City was because he wanted to use Qin Chuan to meet the Azure Dragon Song How, then the reason why he interacted with Qin Chuan after that was because he admired Qin Chuan. If it wasn't for the fact that Qin Chuan was a human, Lion Duke would have already accepted Qin Chuan as his disciple. One must know that with his status, if he were to openly accept a disciple in the demon realm, the queue would stretch from Mount Tianyao to Star Dragon City. As night fell, Lion Duke and Qin Chuan finally arrived at the edge of World Mountain. Above the clouds, Qin Chuan looked down at World Mountain and couldn't help but exclaim. The vastness and magnificence of World Mountain had completely exceeded his expectations. Did you see that? Beneath the vast sea of clouds are all world mountains. Lion Duke laughed and said to Qin Chuan, "When I first saw World Mountain, my reaction was similar to yours. I was deeply shocked by the beauty of World Mountain." After admiring the scenery of World Mountain, Qin Chuan asked with some doubts, "I heard that World Mountain is where the war between the humans and the demon race happened. Why does it look so peaceful?" There are often wars between the humans and the demon race in World Mountain, but they are all in remote areas. They are not in the bustling areas of World Mountain. If anyone dares to start a war in the center of World Mountain, they will be resisted by all the natives of World Mountain. This is a situation that neither the demon race nor the humans want to see. The place I brought you to is the center of World Mountain, so what you see in your eyes is only the beautiful scenery. There is no smoke of war. I see. Qin Chuan suddenly realized. He thought that there was a war burning everywhere in World Mountain, but now it seemed that he thought too much. Speaking of war, Qin Chuan suddenly asked Lion Duke, "Big cousin, what do you think of war?" Lion Duke chuckled and said to Qin Chuan, "When I was young, I thought war was for the sake of the demon realm, for the rise of the demon race. Later, I found out that war was just to satisfy some of the needs of the upper class. The so-called righteousness was nothing more than a high-sounding reason." Hearing Lion Duke's words, Qin Chuan's heart was touched. Although he did not have much contact with war, he really hated it. "We are old, and we have no chance to end the war. But you are still young. The future of the world is up to you young people. If you want to make some changes to this world, then do it boldly." Lion Duke reached out and patted Qin Chuan's shoulder. He laughed and said, "I believe in you." After a short chat, Lion Duke took Qin Chuan to the nearest native city in World Mountain. Along the way, Qin Chuan saw some humans and demon race. Some were alone, and some were in groups. The humans and demon race were getting along very well. "We are here." Lion Duke reached out and pointed to a stone city in front of them. He said to Qin Chuan, "Such a simple building is rare outside." Qin Chuan looked at the stone city that Lion Duke was pointing at. His eyes flashed with surprise. The city was built by hollowing out the mountain. It was one. This is the famous mountain city in World Mountain. When the city was designed and built, there was no need to use other objects at all. It was purely carved out of the mountain. Lion Duke looked at the mountain city and said to Qin Chuan, "The mountain city has been built for more than 3,000 years. There was a battle outside the city. It almost destroyed the mountain city. Suddenly, a big hand fell from the sky and directly killed the two people in the battle. It shocked the world. Since then, no one dared to fight outside the mountain city." Qin Chuan heard this and looked at Lion Duke with some surprise. He asked, "Is the person who did a nascent soul cultivator?" "It should be. I have never seen him." Lion Duke thought for a moment and said, "But even if he was a nascent soul cultivator, he should have died of old age after 3,000 years. While they were talking, Lion Duke brought Qin Chuan to the gate of the mountain city. The mountain city was free to enter and exit, but they had to register in front of the gate. Nascent soul cultivators and demon kings did not have to follow the rules, but Lion Duke did not want to expose his identity. So, he and Qin Chuan registered together, using the name Shi Shui. After the registration, Qin Chuan asked Lion Duke, "Big cousin, is this registration really useful? I think some people are using masks." Lion Duke laughed and said to Qin Chuan, "It doesn't matter if they're using masks or not. These people won't dare to cause trouble in the city. This registration is just a formality." Qin Chuan nodded, but he didn't really understand. He didn't think about it anymore. He turned his attention to the special buildings of the mountain city. This was the second time Qin Chuan had come to such a special city. The last time he saw it was when he went to the Black Moon Combat Academy to report to the City of Elves. "Let's go. I will take you to see the special features of the mountain city." Lion Duke laughed and pulled Qin Chuan to the largest building in the city. Chapter 492. Buy a ticket, buy a ticket. Lion Baron took out 2 low-grade spirit stones and threw them to the guard at the door. He then reached out and took 2 plates from the table and handed one to Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan looked at the plate with the number 60,220 written on it and asked Lion Baron curiously, "Big cousin, what is this?" "This is my seat number. I am 60221. Lion Baron waved the plate at Qin Chuan and said with a smile, "Come into the mountain city. If I don't come here to have a look, then I would have come in vain." After listening to Lion Baron for a long time, Qin Chuan still didn't know where he was. But when he followed Lion Baron into the hall, he heard the cheers and saw the huge ring. He seemed to know where he was. The arena. Looking at the audience who were shouting crazily, looking at the two warriors who were roaring and fighting in the ring, Qin Chuan felt his blood boiling at this moment. He was eager to vent it out. When Lion Baron saw Qin Chuan's face turn slightly red, he couldn't help but laugh. He reached out and patted Qin Chuan's shoulder and said, "How is it? Do you feel the charm of the arena?" Without waiting for Qin Chuan to answer, Lion Baron pulled Qin Chuan to their seats. After sitting down, Qin Chuan looked at the audience who were shouting excitedly. He couldn't help but stand up and look at the ring. At this time, the two warriors in the ring were having a final struggle. The battle was very fierce and quite tragic. The feeling that made people's blood boil was definitely not something that the 6 Great Academies ranking competition could compare with. Seeing Qin Chuan's performance, Lion Baron laughed and said to Qin Chuan, "This is the most lively place in the mountain city. Every day, hundreds of warriors fight here to win the final high prize. The intensity is definitely not comparable to those small competitions you have participated in before." Qin Chuan nodded vigorously and said, "When I first entered the door, I was already infected by the atmosphere of the scene. My blood was boiling." "Boiling is right." Lion Baron looked at Qin Chuan deeply and asked, "Are you interested in going down and giving it a try?" Qin Chuan looked at Lion Baron with some surprise and asked, "Me?" "Yes." Lion Baron nodded and said, "Kid, before you entered the carefree secret realm, you were only in the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage. But now you are almost in the foundation establishment stage. In just 2 months, your realm has improved so quickly. Don't tell me that your foundation is not stable at all." Hearing Lion Baron's words, the expression on Qin Chuan's face couldn't help but become a little serious. Indeed, as Lion Baron said, because his realm had improved too quickly during this period, his foundation was indeed showing signs of instability. If he couldn't consolidate his foundation in time, it might have a certain impact on his future cultivation. If you want to consolidate your foundation, there is nothing faster and better than actual combat. Ordinary practice may not be effective, but a life and death battle in the ring will definitely be effective. Lion Baron looked at Qin Chuan with encouraging eyes and asked again, "The ring is right there. Don't you want to go up and try your skills?" Qin Chuan's eyes lit up when he heard this. He looked at Lion Duke and said excitedly, "Yes." In the arena hall, "Sir, this is our registration form," Wang Yao said. The fox girl in a suit handed a form to Qin Chuan and said to Qin Chuan in a very respectful tone, "As long as you fill in this form, you can line up to participate in the duel in our arena." Qin Chuan reached out and took the form from the fox girl. Before he had time to see what was written on the form, Lion Baron reached out and took the form away. He tore it up and said to the fox girl, "We don't want this kind of ordinary cousin. He wants to participate in the challenge, 1 against 1,000. When the fox girl heard Lion Baron's words, her gentle face couldn't help but show a touch of shock. She said involuntarily, 1 against 1,000? Are you sure?" While she was talking, the fox girl looked at Qin Chuan. She couldn't believe Qin Chuan would choose such a difficult challenge. Qin Chuan didn't know much about ordinary duels or challenges, but if Lion Baron said so, he wasn't going to refuse. He looked at the fox girl in disbelief and smiled. He nodded and said, "Yes, I want to participate in the challenge. 1 against 1,000. The fox girl heard this and immediately said to Qin Chuan, "Please wait a moment. I need the manager to register you." Qin Chuan watched the fox girl leave. Then, he turned to look at Lion Duke and asked curiously, "What do you mean by 1 against 1,000? Lion Baron laughed and asked, You don't even know what 1 against 1,000 means, and you just agreed? Aren't you afraid I'll cheat you? Qin Chuan grinned and said, I can guess a little. I think I have the strength to do so. Good boy. You have guts. Lion Baron laughed proudly. I didn't misjudge you. While Lion Duke was laughing, Little Fox led a Minotaur over. The Minotaur looked at Qin Chuan and Lion Duke, and his eyes fell on Lion Duke. He asked respectfully, Mister, are you the ones who want to participate in the 1 versus 1,000 challenge? It's him, not me. Lion Baron pushed Qin Chuan and said to the Minotaur, Don't ask too many questions. Just register and arrange the time. By the way, explain the rules to him. When the Tauren heard this, he couldn't help but look at Qin Chuan strangely. He didn't even know the rules of the competition and wanted to participate in a 1 versus 1 challenge. Wasn't he being too hasty? Mister, the 1 against 1,000 challenge is divided into 7 rounds. They are 1 against 1, 1 against 5, 1 against 10, 1 against 50, 1 against 100, 1 against 500, and 1 against 1,000. In the first 3 matches, you are not allowed to withdraw or surrender. You either win or die. As long as you survive the first 3 matches, you are allowed to withdraw or surrender in the following matches. If you choose to withdraw, you will only get the rewards for winning the first 3 matches. If you surrender in the next match, all the rewards will be taken away. That's about the rules. After hearing the Minotaur's explanation, Qin Chuan nodded and asked, So, what is the strength of my opponent? The Minotaur immediately replied, In the first 3 rounds, your opponent's realm will be the same as yours. In the following rounds, your opponent's realm will not be lower than yours by 2 realms. Qin Chuan understood, and he nodded again. I have no more questions. Please help me register. I want to participate in the 1 against 1,000 challenge. Chapter 493. The Tauren saw that Qin Chuan was serious, and it didn't seem like he was joking. So he asked again, Mister, if you sign up but don't participate in the challenge, you will be blacklisted and put on the wanted list. Are you sure you want to sign up? This was the final confirmation the Tauren gave to Qin Chuan. He didn't want to wait until the news was out, only to find that he was nowhere to be found. Qin Chuan nodded again and said to the Tauren, I am sure I will participate in the challenge. The Tauren saw that Qin Chuan wasn't backing down, so he respectfully said to Qin Chuan and Lion Duke, Please come with me. Half an hour later, Qin Chuan and Lion Duke walked out of the manager's office. Lion Duke looked at Qin Chuan and asked, How is it? Do you feel a lot of pressure? Qin Chuan laughed and said to Lion Duke, If you want to talk about pressure, let's wait until the 4th round. I don't think the first 3 rounds will be enough to pressure me. You are quite confident, aren't you? Lion Duke smiled and said to Qin Chuan, The challenge will take place in 3 days. We will spend the next few days in Mountain City. If you need anything, just tell me. I will try my best to satisfy you. Qin Chuan thought about it seriously, then said to Lion Duke, Big cousin, I want a good sword. When he heard Qin Chuan, Lion Duke laughed and said, I thought you were going to ask me something. Isn't it just a sword? Let's go to the biggest treasure house in Mountain City. You can buy whatever you like. Big cousin will treat you. When Qin Chuan heard this, he immediately smiled and said, Then I'll thank Big cousin in advance. Don't worry, I definitely won't let you down in this challenge. On this day, the arena in Mountain City suddenly released the news to the entire Jia Mountain. After almost 100 years, the arena once again challenged 1,000 people. Once this news spread, it caused a sensation in Mountain City and half of Jia Mountain. Although the arena was filled with people, most of the matches were 1-on-1 or 2-on-2. There were very few matches that could give people a sense of novelty. The audience had already developed aesthetic fatigue. The appearance of the 1 against 1,000 challenge could be said to have lit up the eyes of the audience. They were full of interest in this upcoming challenge. When news of Qin Chuan's identity spread, it attracted the attention of countless people. Qin Chuan, 19 years old, late Foundation establishment stage. Exact combat strength unknown. Prospective second-year student of the Black Moon Combat Academy, MVP of the Star Dragon Federation's 6 Great Academies ranking tournament. He entered the carefree secret realm not long ago and recently returned to the human world. In the living room, a graceful young woman wearing a long black dress was sitting on the sofa. Her eyes were lazily looking at the information in her hands. Her charming face revealed some anticipation. Our mountain city hasn't had such a young and promising handsome youth for many years. This Qin Chuan looks pretty good. I'm very interested in him. The black-clothed butler, standing to the side, immediately asked respectfully, "Madam, do you need me to bring him to see you?" "That won't be necessary." The young woman gently shook her head. "As for meeting him, let's wait until he passes the first 3 stages." At this point, the young woman paused for a moment. Then she said to the butler, "Go and tell old Neo in the arena to arrange for Shiyu to fight in the first match." Hearing the young woman's arrangement, the butler was slightly surprised. However, he didn't ask any questions and only respectfully agreed. The butler accepted the order and left. The young woman slowly sat up and took Qinchuan's picture in her hands again. She carefully looked at it again and muttered in a low voice, "Similar, really too similar." Tianyao Mountain. Wearing a red dress, Yao Rao was sitting cross-legged on the edge of the cliff. Her gaze was looking towards the west. Her exquisite face was filled with boredom. Behind the young woman, a white Pegasus descended from the sky and landed beside the young woman. It changed into a tall figure and said to the young woman with a smile, "Just now I heard news. Do you want to hear it?" "Don't want to hear it." Yao Rao was bored to death. "I want to be alone." "Oh, that's really a pity. I heard that in Mountain City's arena of Jia Mountain City, a rarely seen one against 1,000 challenge has appeared. Don't you want to go and see it? I have already bought the tickets." "Ma Jiaowen, if you want to go, then go by yourself. If you want someone to accompany, you go find someone else. This empress has no time." So, if it's like this, then I can only go by myself to cheer for Qin Chuan." Finished speaking, Ma Jiaowen was ready to turn around and leave. But Yao Rao suddenly reached out and grabbed her skirt. "Who did you say just now? Qin Chuan? What happened to him?" Ma Jiaowen innocently said, "Did I mention Qin Chuan just now?" "Princess Yao Rao, did you mishear?" Having heard what was said, Yao Rao immediately said, "I heard it clearly. You said you'll go and cheer for Qin Chuan." Seeing Yao Rao was anxious, Ma Jiaowen immediately said with a smile, "Yes, Qin Chuan went to Mountain City of Jia Mountain to participate in 1 against 1,000 challenge. As a friend, I want to go and cheer for him. Is there any problem? He actually went to Jia Mountain? I also want to go." Yao Rao said to Ma Jiaowen, "Give me the tickets." Ma Jiaowen handed over the tickets to Yao Rao with a smile and said, "I heard the news is already today. Let's set out as soon as possible. His challenge will begin in 1 day. Let's go." Without demur, Yao Rao turned around and walked towards outside. While walking, she gnashed her teeth and said, "That guy actually has the mood to go to GM Mountain to participate in some challenge. Could it be that he forgot about the matter of coming to Tianyao Mountain as a guest?" Looking at the angry appearance of Yao Rao, Ma Jiaowen said with a smile, "But at that time, Princess gave you half a year's time, and he has only left Xiaoyao's secret realm for a few days." Having heard what was said, Yao Rao immediately turned to look at Ma Jiaowen and asked, "Are you speaking for him?" "I was wrong." Ma Jiaowen very straightforwardly admitted her mistake. She didn't want to be reprimanded by Yao Rao. In the palace on the summit, a tall and straight figure wearing a golden robe was standing in front of steps. Looking at the figure of Yao Rao and Ma Jiaowen who were descending the mountain, his deep eyes couldn't help but reveal a touch of complex expression. It seemed he didn't want Yao Rao to go to Jia Mountain. "Your Majesty." A beautiful woman whose appearance was somewhat similar to Yao Rao slowly walked over and stood side by side with Demon Emperor. She looked at the departing figure of Yao Rao and said in a low voice, "Rao, we're going to Jia Mountain this time. Your Majesty doesn't plan to stop her. The things that Rao wanted to do in these past few years, how many things can we stop?" Demon Emperor faintly sighed. "Let her be." Having heard what was said, Demon Empress turned to look at Demon Emperor with complex expression and asked, "If Rao is injured because of this, what should we do?" "Kill." Demon Emperor said without the slightest hesitation. I will kill whoever makes Rauer injured. Chapter 494. As the news of the 1 against 1,000 challenge spread, the mountain city had attracted a lot of people in just 2 days. It had become much livelier than before. The arena, which was only half full, was now filled to the brim. Every arena was filled to the brim. The reason why this happened had little to do with Qin Chuan, who was the protagonist of the challenge. Most of the audience came for Shi Yu, who was going to fight in the first battle. For people outside the World Mountain, Shi Yu's name might be unfamiliar. But in the World Mountain, Shi Yu's name represented the ceiling of the Foundation Establishment stage. People first learned about Shi Yu in the Mountain City's arena. At that time, Shi Yu was only 18 years old, but he had already gone through hundreds of battles in the arena. His winning rate had reached an astonishing 100%. The reason for such an exaggerated winning rate was that Shi Yu would repeatedly challenge the opponents who defeated him until he defeated everyone. At that time, as long as Shi Yu appeared in a battle, the arena would be overcrowded. In 10 years, the audience witnessed how Shi Yu went from being invincible in the Qi refining stage to being invincible in the Foundation Establishment stage. Today, when the word invincible was mentioned, the first thing that came to people's minds was Shi Yu. After becoming invincible in the Foundation Establishment stage, Shi Yu left the arena and did not appear in the arena for 3 years. This also made Shi Yu's name become a legend, a story, and a regret for the audience who wanted to see Shi Yu become invincible in the Gold Course stage. Just when everyone thought that Shi Yu would never appear in the arena again, Shi Yu once again appeared in front of the public in a very special way. In the 1 against 1,000 challenge, Shi Yu would fight against Qin Chuan in the first one-on-one battle. No one thought that this time, Shi Yu would appear in the 1 against 1,000 challenge. After all, Shi Yu was one of the few people who could win the 4th round in the 1 against 1,000 challenge. No one thought that Shi Yu would suddenly appear at this time. Qin Chuan did not expect it at all. He thought that his opponent in the first round was at most a Foundation Establishment stage cultivator or a top goblin general. Who would have thought that it would be a monster like Shi Yu? Qin Chuan looked at the video of Shi Yu's fight. He couldn't help but sigh. This Shi Yu, I can only use one word to describe him. It's pleasing to the eye. Lion Duke, who was eating meat, smiled and said to Qin Chuan, Shi Yu is a genius. I haven't seen him before, but I've heard of him. I thought he was already in the Gold Core stage, but I didn't expect him to still be in the Foundation Establishment stage. You've met your match this time, so be careful. Qin Chuan curiously asked Lion Baron, what kind of person is he? Leo Duke thought for a moment and said, no talent, but hard work. No background, but his heart is higher than the sky. Hearing Lion Duke's evaluation of Shi Yu's position in Qin Chuan's heart couldn't help but rise. If he was just playing around in the first 3 rounds, then he was now ready to go all out. This was only the first level, and he had already encountered such an abnormal opponent like Shi Yu. Wouldn't his opponents be even stronger in the 2nd and 3rd levels? Looking at Qin Chuan's dignified expression, Lion Duke smiled and comforted him. Don't feel pressure. As long as you work hard and exert your full strength, you may not lose. Qin Chuan smiled bitterly and said, I thought you would say that I'll win. Lion Duke laughed and said to Qin Chuan, if your opponent is someone else, then I'll have a lot of confidence in you. But your opponent is Shi Yu. He's a legend in the Foundation Establishment stage. A legend in the Foundation Establishment stage. When he thought of facing such a character, Qin Chuan found that he didn't feel any fear in his heart. Instead, he felt a little excited. Manager, all the tickets for the day of the competition have been sold out, and all the member boxes have been reserved. The fox girl, who once received Qin Chuan and Lion Duke, respectfully looked at the Tauren sitting in front of her and reported the ticket situation in a low voice. When the Tauren heard the report, he asked, is Qin Chuan still in the hotel? Yes, the people we sent have been watching him. He eats in the hotel's restaurant every day. The fox girl replied, from the current situation, he doesn't seem to have any intention of escaping. That's good. The Tauren breathed a sigh of relief. If this kid runs away, she will definitely not show up. At that time, we will be in big trouble. You can go out and do your job." The fox girl nodded, then turned and left. Originally, the Tauren had released the news that Qin Chuan was going to participate in the 1 versus 1,000 challenge. He didn't expect it to cause much of a stir, but Shiyu's appearance was completely out of his expectations. As a result, the challenge had attracted everyone's attention even before it officially began. Thinking of Shiyu, the Tauren felt a little emotional. 3 years have passed. He thought that Shiyu had now become a cultivator in the gold core stage, but he didn't expect that he was still in the foundation establishment stage. He didn't know if Shiyu, who was once invincible in the foundation establishment stage, was still invincible after 3 years. Knock, knock, knock. A knock on the door interrupted the Tauren's thoughts. He looked up in the direction of the door and said loudly, "Come in." As soon as his voice fell, the office door was pushed open from the outside. The people who came in were not the arena staff that the Tauren was familiar with, but 2 unfamiliar girls. The Tauren frowned and looked at the 2 girls in front of him and asked, "Who are you?" The girl walking in front didn't answer the Tauren's question. She just threw a golden token on the Tauren's desk, then said to the Tauren, "I just want to take a look at the scene. I don't like the seats outside. It's too noisy. I want to change to a quiet and elegant box." The Tauren looked at the token in front of him, which was engraved with the word Yao. At first, he was stunned, but then he quickly woke up. He quickly stood up and said respectfully to the girl, "Please wait a moment. This little one will arrange it." "Thank you." The girl nodded gently to the Tauren. "By the way, the matter of our arrival is a secret. You'd better not reveal it. This little one knows. This little one will keep his mouth shut." The Tauren nodded his head like he was pounding garlic. Unless he was tired of living, he wouldn't dare to leak any information about this little ancestor. Chapter 495. When the day of the 1,000 challenge arrived, the city was overcrowded. Those who couldn't buy tickets were stuck outside the arena, hoping to hear the latest news about Shiyu. Looking around, there were people supporting Shiyu from all directions. On the other hand, the real protagonist, Qin Chuan, was like a homeless man on the side of the road. Lion Duke and Qin Chuan walked together in the crowd. He looked at the crowd around them and looked at the support signs in their hands. He smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "Look, these people are all supporting Shiyu. No one is supporting you." Qin Chuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Isn't this normal? I'm not a local, and they don't know me. Of course, they won't support me." "Then, do you want to shout for you?" Lion Duke laughed. "My lion's roar can definitely suppress all of these people's voices." "Forget it then." Qin Chuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Not many people pay attention to me. If you shout, even fewer people will pay attention to me." The 2 talked and laughed all the way to the entrance of the arena. There were already staff waiting for them. When they saw Qin Chuan and Lion Duke, they immediately welcomed Qin Chuan and Lion Duke in with a very respectful attitude. "Mr. Qin, Mr. Shi, please come with me." Qin Chuan and Lion Duke were led by the staff to a lounge specially prepared for them. The lounge was very large and luxurious, and it had all the necessary facilities. Qin Chuan didn't stand on ceremony. He directly took a glass of juice and drank it comfortably. He looked at the huge stadium through the transparent window and smiled at Lion Duke. "I can't wait to see the stadium full of people. It must be very spectacular." Lion Baron laughed and said, "It's a pity that the audience is here for Shiyu, not for you." Qin Chuan turned to look at Lion Duke. "I'm about to go on stage. Don't you think it's not a good idea to hurt my confidence at this time?" Leo Viscount did not respond to Qin Chuan. He walked to the window and pointed at the arena outside. He said to Qin Chuan, "If you don't have confidence, you won't be able to walk out of here alive. This is not a fighting ring, but an arena where life and death are determined. If you're not ready, I advise you not to go up there." Qin Chuan was surprised to see Lion Lord's face become so serious. He looked at Lion Lord for a while and said, "I'm ready." In a luxurious private room, Yaorao was sitting cross-legged on the sofa with one hand supporting her chin. She was bored and asked Ma Jiaowen, "When will this duel begin?" "Princess, don't worry. Now the audience is entering the stadium. When all the audience enters the stadium, the duel will begin. Ma Jiawen smiled and said to Yao Rao, Qingchuan's first opponent is the famous Shiyu. Shiyu is known as invincible in foundation establishment stage. Moreover, he is recognized by the public. It will be difficult for Qingchuan to win. Yao Rao curled her lips and said, So what if Shiyu is known as invincible in foundation establishment stage? He just hasn't met anyone who is truly invincible. Qingchuan can even cut off the leg of Zerg's Khan, let alone an insignificant Shiyu. While speaking, Yao Rao took out a spiritual value card and handed it over to Ma Jiawen. She said to Ma Jiawen, Help this queen to bet 1 million on Qingchuan. Looking at the spiritual value card handed over by Yao Rao, Ma Jiawen smiled. Then what if Qingchuan loses? Then this queen will look for him to compensate. Yao Rao confidently said, If he can't even defeat this Shiyu, then he really failed to live up to this queen's expectations of him. Looking at the expression on Yao Rao's face, Ma Jiawen asked with a smile, Princess, haven't you also reached the age of choosing son-in-law? Hearing Ma Jiawen mention the matter of choosing son-in-law, Yao Rao cast a sidelong glance at Ma Jiawen and said, Ma Jiawen, your thoughts are very dangerous. Ma Jiawen deeply looked at Yao Rao and said, Princess, I am not afraid of my thoughts being dangerous. I am afraid of your thoughts being dangerous. This queen's thoughts are very safe. Yao Rao turned her head and looked at the arena outside the window, then said word by word, Only the truly strong is worthy of this queen. In the private room, next to Yao Rao and Ma Jiawen's private room, a graceful and luxurious, beautiful young woman was sitting upright on the sofa. Her white and tender hand was holding a glass of red wine, gently shaking it, looking very comfortable and leisurely. In front of this young woman, there was an ordinary-looking middle-aged man, but his temperament was very special. He was also holding a glass of red wine in his hand, but he was shaking it somewhat clumsily, as if he was not accustomed to it. How many years has it been? Shiyu, we have known each other for nearly 20 years. Looking at the middle-aged man in front of her, a touch of nostalgia flashed through the eyes of this young woman. The middle-aged man called Shiyu slightly paused, then replied, Madam, to be exact, it should be 18 years, 3 months, and 24 days. Hearing this, the young woman chuckled. You actually remember it very clearly. Shiyu faintly smiled, then said to the young woman, That year, I was besieged by 4 8th-level refinement chi cultivators and almost died. Madam saved me, so I wanted to follow Madam and work for her, to repay Madam for saving my life. But Madam said, I don't have the qualifications to follow you, and if I want to follow you, then I have to go to the arena and become invincible. So I came here. Mentioning the past, Shiyu also opened his chatterbox and began to talk nonstop. When I became invincible in refinement chi stage, I went to look for Madam, but Madam said invincible in refinement chi stage is only refinement chi stage. Nothing more. In front of foundation establishment stage. You gave me a foundation establishment liquid to help me advance to foundation establishment stage, and let me go and become invincible in foundation establishment stage. I thought that with my strength, I should be able to become invincible in foundation establishment stage very quickly, but I didn't expect that this time it would take me a whole 10 years. In these 10 years, I have experienced countless defeats, and it was you who hired a professional medical team to treat me, and it was you who's been providing me with cultivation resources for my cultivation. If it wasn't for you, I am afraid I would have been a dead man, and even if I didn't die, I would definitely be a cripple. When I really became an invincible legend in foundation establishment stage, I thought that the next thing I would be invincible in gold core stage, but I didn't expect that my talent was limited. Even with your unlimited supply of core condensation liquid, I still couldn't successfully condense a gold core and advance to gold core stage. I have failed to live up to your expectations. All this time, I haven't been able to sincerely apologize to you, really. I'm sorry. Chapter 496. Hearing Shiyu's apology, the young woman couldn't help but show a complicated expression. She looked at Shiyu and said, In fact, with your talent, it's not impossible for you to reach the gold course stage. It's just that you've been fighting in the arena for more than 10 years, and your body has been crippled. Speaking of this matter, the young woman said to Shi Yu with some regret, "When you noticed that your foundation was damaged, you should have told me." Shi Yu smiled and said, "At that time, I was only one step away from the invincible foundation establishment stage. If I missed the opportunity to challenge because of this, I don't know when I'll get another chance. I've never regretted the past, not in the past, not now, and not in the future." Shi Yu, do you know why I want you to fight in this 1 against 1,000 challenge? Suddenly, the young woman changed the topic and mentioned this challenge. "I don't know." Shi Yu shook his head and said frankly, "But I believe that Madam must have a reason for this arrangement." The young woman looked at Shi Yu and said, "This time, your opponent is called Qin Chuan. I hope you lose to him." Hearing the young woman's words, Shi Yu couldn't help but be stunned. He looked at the young woman with puzzled eyes, as if he couldn't understand the young woman's reason. Facing Shi Yu's puzzled eyes, the young woman said faintly, "He's the son of an old friend of mine." Shi Yu was silent for a moment, then said to the young woman, "I understand. I will lose." "No, you don't understand." The young woman shook her head and said to Shi Yu, "I hope you lose to him, not to him, understand?" Shi Yu looked at the young woman deeply and said, "Madam, this time I really understand." Boom! When the lights in the arena lit up, the whole scene suddenly boiled up. Everyone was shouting and cheering crazily, waiting for the start of the duel. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mountain City Arena. The highly anticipated 1 against 1,000 men challenge is about to begin. Are you ready? Under the host's loud shout, the audience responded with even more enthusiastic cheers. Shi Yu's name also appeared in the cheers, and gradually, everyone began to shout Shi Yu's name. On the other hand, Qin Chuan, who was supposed to be the main character, was awkwardly ignored. Inside the private room, hearing the shouts outside, Yarao couldn't help but lightly raised her eyebrows, then said to Ma Jiaowen, "Is Qin Chuan so shameless?" In Jia Mountain, compared to Shi Yu, Qin Chuan is almost unknown. It is normal that there is no audience cheering for Qin Chuan. Ma Jiaowen was very open-minded about this. Qin Chuan had just entered Jia Mountain, so it would be strange if he had a lot of fans. When Yarao and Ma Jiaowen were chatting, it was finally the time for the challenger to enter the arena. Qin Chuan, who was wearing black sportswear under the illumination of bright lights, slowly walked onto the huge ring in the center of the arena. And on the other side, Shi Yu also finally appeared. On the ring, amidst the cheers, Qin Chuan's gaze slowly fell on Shi Yu. He had watched many videos of Shi Yu's fights before, but this was the first time he had seen Shi Yu in person. Compared to the videos, Shi Yu in person was more calm and reserved, just like a sheathed sword, not revealing its edge. When Qin Chuan was observing Shi Yu was also observing Qin Chuan. Shi Yu's first impression of Qin Chuan was immature, and his second impression was that he revealed a bit of maturity and experience. He didn't look like a normal less than 20 years old youngster. Rather, he looked like a middle-aged man who had already experienced the baptism of wind and frost, but still maintained his original heart. A very special feeling, a very special impression. Hearing about you is not as good as meeting you in person. Qin Chuan took the initiative to greet Shi Yu. "I can see that you are very strong." Qin Chuan was not flattering Shi Yu. Rather, he really felt that Shi Yu was very strong. Shi Yu, an ordinary foundation establishment peak, gave Qin Chuan a completely different feeling. It was a kind of unique temperament that only a person who had gone through hundreds of battles and wandered on the edge of life and death countless times could possess. Shi Yu was called invincible in foundation establishment realm, and it was not without reason. Facing Qin Chuan's praise, Shi Yu didn't show any happiness or dissatisfaction. He was very calm, and didn't even open his mouth to respond to Qin Chuan. Facing Shi Yu's silence, Qin Chuan also didn't feel embarrassed. He smiled and very seriously said to Shi Yu, "To be honest, I really want to experience your strength. I want to see the difference between me and invincible in foundation establishment realm. Let me tell you in advance, I'm also very strong. I hope you won't be too careless." Shi Yu still didn't have any intention to respond to Qin Chuan, But because of Qin Chuan's words, the audience booed. They had seen shameless people before, but they had never seen someone as shameless as Qin Chuan. He actually had the nerve to say that he was very strong in front of Shi Yu, who was invincible in Foundation Establishment realm. Even Yao Rao and Ma Jiawen couldn't stand it anymore. Qin Chuan was really confident. Woo woo woo. A melodious bugle horn sound resounded, and the noisy scene slowly became quiet. Everyone knew that when the bugle horn sound stopped, the duel was about to begin. Qin Chuan, who had already understood the rules of the arena, was ready to fight with all his strength when the bugle horn sound resounded. His gaze was slightly dignified as he looked at Shi Yu, who was 100 meters away, and in his mind, he had already formed 3 sets of combat plans. But Shi Yu was still the same as before, standing tall and straight, as if he didn't want to take this duel seriously. However, the people who knew Shi Yu knew that no matter who his opponent was, Shi Yu would always be like this. Buzz. When the last note of the horn ended, Qin Chuan made his move. The first thing he did was to inscribe a Thunderbolt Charm Array to increase his speed. Then, he dashed toward Shi Yu like a bolt of lightning. When he was close enough to Shi Yu, he unleashed his Thunderbolt combat technique. The power of thunder transformed into a thunderous beast that roared and charged toward Shi Yu. Whoosh! Just when the Thunder Beast was about to hit Shi Yu's figure suddenly disappeared, and the next moment, he appeared on the left side of Qin Chuan without any sign. Then he raised his hand and punched out. This simple and straightforward punch directly hit Qin Chuan's shoulder. Bang! Huge power erupted in an instant, and the powerful impact instantly made Qin Chuan lose his balance and flew towards the right side. Shi Yu stood in the same place, but he didn't have any intention to chase after Qin Chuan. He just calmly looked at Qin Chuan adjusting his body in the air, and then steadily landed on the ground. And when he saw Qin Chuan had stood firmly on the ground, Shi Yu made a new move. He flashed, disappeared, reappeared, and once again punched out and sent Qin Chuan flying. The same scene played out again like a rerun. Chapter 497. After being sent flying by Shi Yu's punch for the second time, Qin Chuan stabilized his body and stared at Shi Yu. However, Shi Yu broke away from his gaze in an instant and appeared at his side again, throwing out another punch. Qin Chuan instinctively raised his hand to block, but it was too late. This time, Shi Yu didn't just attack with brute force, but also with a burst of spiritual power. Rumble. Qin Chuan's body flew to the side and landed heavily on the stage. No matter how strong Qin Chuan's physical body was, his face turned pale at this moment. His brows were tightly knitted together, and it was obvious that he was in great pain. "You're too weak, much weaker than I imagined." Shi Yu looked at Qin Chuan with disappointment. With the strength that Qin Chuan had shown, even if he went easy on him, Qin Chuan might not be his opponent. It seemed that he might have to disappoint his wife. He was invincible in the Foundation Establishment stage, and he wasn't someone that Qin Chuan could fight against. Facing Shi Yu's disappointed expression, Qin Chuan's face couldn't help but become a little ugly. Ever since he became a cultivator, he hadn't been looked at like this for a long time. However, although he was unhappy, Qin Chuan had to admit that Shi Yu was too strong in terms of speed and explosive power. "I admit that I underestimated you," Qin Chuan grinned. "If I don't go all out, I won't be your opponent at all." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Shi Yu was expressionless and didn't say anything. She had seen too many people like Qin Chuan who refused to admit defeat over the years and was already numb to it. If a person really had strength, they wouldn't show it with their mouth. Seeing Shi Yu's expressionless face, Qin Chuan knew that Shi Yu didn't take his words to heart. However, he soon used practical actions to tell Shi Yu that he wasn't all-mouthy king. Secret skill of fury. Qin Chuan shouted, and his eyes instantly turned blood red. His aura became restless and violent, and his whole person was in a state of extreme excitement. Seeing Qin Chuan's change on the surface, Shi Yu slightly raised her eyebrows. Her figure flickered, and she instantly closed in on Qin Chuan. Just as she wanted to send Qin Chuan flying with the same move, Qin Chuan acted as if he had predicted it and blocked her fist. The moment he blocked Shiyu's fist, Qin Chuan grinned. This time, I won't give you another chance. Lightning Control Array, activate. Along with the rolling heavenly lightning, the arena suddenly lit up with a blue light. The violent power of lightning surged and completely sealed the area, turning the arena into Qin Chuan's home ground. Facing Qin Chuan's counterattack, Shiyu's face didn't show any trace of seriousness. Instead, she smiled. She looked at Qin Chuan, and her eyes were slightly fiery. This time, your performance is decent. You're worthy of me using some of my true skills. Before she could finish her sentence, the aura on Shiyu's body suddenly became extremely strong. Her body seemed to burn, and she released an extremely shocking energy fluctuation. She was like a blazing flame. Feeling the terrifying energy fluctuation from Shiyu's body, Qin Chuan's face became serious again. He didn't expect Shiyu to release his complete form so quickly without any intention of testing his strength. In the audience, when they saw Shiyu's long-awaited complete form, they couldn't help but cheer. According to their past experience, once Shiyu released his complete form, no one would be able to last more than a minute under his powerful attacks. Buzz! Shiyu put her palms together, and a blazing red ball of light condensed between her palms. She accurately locked on a Qin Chuan, and suddenly a red beam of light shot out, instantly arriving in front of Qin Chuan. Lightning Shield. At the critical moment, Qin Chuan withdrew the power of the lightning control array and condensed it into a lightning shield in front of him. He wanted to block the red beam of light, but the seemingly sturdy lightning shield was as fragile as a thin sheet of paper in front of the red beam of light. It was penetrated in one hit. Poochie! The red beam of light didn't stop after piercing through the lightning shield. It went straight through Qin Chuan's abdomen and then bombarded the arena, creating a deep pit. The roar was earth-shattering. Ow, ow, ow. When they saw Shiyu's attack hit Qin Chuan, the audience suddenly burst into crazy shouts. Shiyu's performance didn't disappoint them. The invincible foundation establishment in their hearts had returned. Seeing Qin Chuan was injured, Yao Rao immediately stood up, and looking at the waiter with extremely severe expression, she said in heavy voice, "Immediately stop the duel." Hearing this, the waiter was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and said, "I'm sorry. No one is allowed to interfere with the duel in the arena." "You!" Yao Rao was furious, but she was stopped by Ma Jiawen. "Princess, Qin Chuan still hasn't lost. He still hasn't used dragon transformation technique. He still has a lot of trump cards." Hearing this, Yao Rao opened her mouth wanting to say something, but at this time, a new change occurred in the arena. Ow! A burst of earth-shattering dragon roar resounded through the arena. Qin Chuan's body suddenly changed into several tens of feet long azure thunder dragon, then roared and flew to the sky above the arena, then opened his mouth and spouted a group of dragon breath toward Shiyu. Seeing Qin Chuan had changed into dragon, Shiyu's eyes couldn't help but flash with a touch of surprise. But his reaction was extremely fast. His figure flashed and dodged the attack of dragon breath. And at this time, Qin Chuan swept his dragon tail, and unexpectedly he had predicted the direction of Shiyu's dodging and hit Shiyu. The powerful impact made Shiyu's body uncontrollably fly to one side, and at the same time, Qin Chuan roared and brazenly pounced toward Shiyu. His sharp dragon claws grabbed toward Shiyu from a distance, and unexpectedly, it was a kind of space ceiling, making Shiyu unable to dodge. Facing Qin Chuan's powerful counterattack, Shiyu angrily roared, and suddenly a group of red-colored light ball appeared in his hand and directly shot towards Qin Chuan. The red-colored light ball hadn't even approached Qin Chuan when it exploded in the air, and raging flame covered the sky, separating Qin Chuan and Shiyu, making it impossible for Qin Chuan to continue sealing Shiyu. Shiyu's counterattack had neutralized Qin Chuan's powerful attack, making the tense situation between both of them eased, and the audience who were crazily shouting were also able to relax. No one had thought that the battle, which they thought would end very quickly, would become somewhat confusing because of Qinchuan's sudden eruption. When the flames slowly dissipated, Shiyu's figure appeared in front of Qinchuan. This time, Qinchuan didn't pounce on Shiyu, but confronted Shiyu in the air, his pair of golden vertical pupils filled with murderous intent. At this time, Qinchuan could no longer fight Shiyu with the mentality of learning from each other. If he didn't fight Shiyu with the mentality of killing him, then the one who would lose the battle, and even his life, would definitely be him. Chapter 498. Roar. Finally, Qinchuan was unable to endure and took the initiative to break this temporary tranquility and launched an attack on Shiyu. After roaring, he opened his mouth and continuously spouted dragon breath toward Shiyu, blocking the direction of Shiyu's retreat, then suddenly pounced toward Shiyu with awe-inspiring, killing intent. Facing Qinchuan's strong attack, Shiyu didn't retreat, instead advanced, and as if an artillery shell, directly rushed towards Qinchuan. World King Fist, Shiyu roared, then waved his iron fist, and the spiritual power within his body surged out, transforming into a huge fist and loudly collided with Qinchuan's body. Not only did he block Qinchuan's attack, he even repelled Qinchuan. Qinchuan's figure rapidly retreated, and after rotating in the air, he once again pounced toward Shiyu. But Shiyu still blocked with his fist, not giving Qinchuan any chance to approach him. In the private room, seeing Qinchuan being repelled again and again by Shiyu and was completely unable to approach Shiyu, Yarao couldn't help but scold Ma Jiawen. I have never seen anyone more stupid than Qinchuan. Don't tell me that after transforming into dragon form, he only knows how to spit dragon breath and fight hand-to-hand? In the end, is Dragon Clan's fighting method so simple? Or is there something wrong with his brain? Hearing Yarao, Ma Jiawen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After all, Qinchuan is not a real dragon, and also not a monster clan. I think he must have coincidentally obtained the opportunity to transform into dragon form. So not knowing how to use Dragon Clan's fighting method is also a normal matter. Qinchuan was originally a human, although he had the ability to transform into dragon form. But if he could really fight like Dragon God, then could Qinchuan still be considered as a human? Yarao coldly snorted, then said to Ma Jiawen, "This is the result of him not going to Heavenly Monster Mountain as a guest first. If he had gone to Heavenly Monster Mountain first, then he could have obtained Dragon Clan's secret technique inheritance, and wouldn't have been fooled like an idiot. I came here to see him display his invincible might, not to see him being beaten." Having heard what was said, Ma Jiawen looked at Yarao in surprise, then asked, "Dragon Clan's secret technique inheritance? Princess, is this His Majesty's will?" Yarao knew that she had spilled the beans due to her excitement just a moment ago, but since she had already spilled the beans, there was no meaning in hiding it. She still trusted Ma Jiawen very much, so she simply said to Ma Jiawen, "This shouldn't be the idea of Father Emperor, but rather the idea of Heavenly Demon Temple. In the past few years, the Heavenly Demon Temple has been preserving the inheritance of the secret skill of the Dragon Clan. They want to find a member of the Dragon Clan to pass down this secret skill, but they haven't been able to wait for the reappearance of the Dragon Clan. When I saw Qinchuan transform into a dragon in the Carefree Secret Realm, I thought of the inheritance of the secret skill of the Dragon Clan. Maybe Qinchuan can inherit the secret skill of the Dragon Clan." Hearing Yarao, Ma Jiawen couldn't help but somewhat worriedly said, "Dragon Clan's secret technique inheritance is after all an important inheritance of our demon clan. If it is inherited by Qinchuan, who is a human, then wouldn't that be somewhat inappropriate? Of course, I have also thought about this matter, but think about it. Since the establishment of Heavenly Demon Temple, how many years have passed? Have you ever seen a member of the Dragon Clan?" Ma Jiawen was somewhat speechless, because the Dragon Clan indeed hadn't appeared in the demon world for a very long time. Moreover, so what if Qinchuan is a human? Yarao deeply looked at Ma Jiawen. "Didn't you say just now? It's time for this empress to choose her son-in-law." This guy, Qinchuan, was somewhat anxious. Shiyu's defense and counterattack were too tight, making him unable to find any gap. If this stalemate continued, then it wouldn't be good for him. Qin Chuan was anxious, but Shiyu was calm, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. No matter how Qin Chuan attacked, Shiyu repelled him with a punch. Not to mention that his defense had no blind spot. He would even seize the opportunity to counterattack, disrupting Qin Chuan's attack rhythm. It could be said that Shiyu was quite uncomfortable for Qin Chuan. Seeing that Shiyu's attack wasn't successful, Qin Chuan angrily roared, then unexpectedly withdrew from his dragon form and returned to his human form. Seeing Qin Chuan had returned to his human form, Shiyu lightly raised his eyebrows, but didn't anxiously attack. But when he saw Qin Chuan had taken out a talisman pen, he immediately changed his mind and pounced towards Qin Chuan. Shiyu was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Qin Chuan. Seeing this, Qin Chuan immediately retreated. At the same time, he instantly inscribed a Thunder Manipulation Talisman Array. The Thunder Manipulation Talisman Array transformed into a thunder beast, roaring angrily as it charged towards Shiyu, trying to stop him from getting closer. Facing the thunder beast, Shiyu raised his hand and smashed the thunder beast into pieces with a punch. However, after the thunder beast was smashed into pieces, it transformed into a thunder dragon, and once again pounced toward Shiyu. Seeing this, Shiyu slightly frowned, then looked at the array diagram in front of Qin Chuan. A red ball of light condensed in each of his hands, and then he shot it out. One ball collided with the thunder dragon, and the other ball shot towards the array diagram in front of Qin Chuan. Before the result of the collision could be seen, Shiyu's figure flashed continuously, and he quickly approached Qin Chuan. Seeing that Qin Chuan had inscribed more than half of the talisman array, he immediately shouted in a low voice, "Flame explosion!" As Shiyu roared, a dark red fireball suddenly appeared, and then suddenly exploded. The blazing flames surged and instantly engulfed Qin Chuan. Whoosh! Whoosh! The flames were ferocious, turning the entire stage into a sea of fire. Under the burning of the raging flames, the array diagram shattered, the lightning beast disappeared, and even Qin Chuan's figure disappeared. It was as if he had been directly turned into ashes by the raging flames. Seeing this, the audience shouted loudly again. Although this battle was thrilling, the winner was still Shiyu, the invincible god of war in the Foundation establishment stage. Compared to the excitement of the audience, Shiyu's expression was much more dignified. He looked at the flames that covered the entire arena and carefully sensed, but he couldn't find any trace of Qin Chuan in the flames. The audience would think that Qin Chuan had been burned into ashes by the flames, but Shiyu would never think so. According to Qin Chuan's previous performance, he would never die so easily. If he is not in the arena, then he must be in the sky. Sizzle. When a violent, thunderous roar sounded, Shiyu suddenly raised her head and looked at the sky. She saw Qin Chuan with a pair of lightning wings on his back and a long sword in his hand. He swooped down like a god, descending to the mortal world. Absolute. With a roar, Qin Chuan waved the long sword in his hand. An incomparably bright sword light cut through the sky, penetrated the raging flames, and slashed directly on Shiyu's chest. The moment the powerful sword light touched Shiyu's body, it raged and rushed into Shiyu's 5 viscera and 6 bowels. Then, it came out of Shiyu's body and crashed into the arena, causing an earth-shattering roar. Puff! Shiyu fell to the ground, and blood splattered on the spot. Bang! Qin Chuan's figure fell heavily on the arena. His sharp eyes looked at Shiyu, who was lying on the ground, and said in a deep voice, "I have won this battle." Chapter 499. With Qin Chuan's powerful declaration, the hundreds of thousands of people in the arena looked at Shiyu, who was lying on the ground with a weak aura and had lost his ability to fight. Everyone stared blankly at Qin Chuan and Shiyu, who was lying on the ground. Before the battle, no one had thought that Shiyu would lose. The legend of the invincible Foundation establishment would be shattered. However, it didn't mean that it wouldn't happen. Qin Chuan had used his powerful performance to prove to everyone that the invincible foundation establishment was only for others. In front of him, it wouldn't work. Boom! After a short moment of silence, the arena burst into cheers. The legend of Shiyu's invincible foundation establishment was shattered. They had witnessed the birth of a new invincible foundation establishment with their own eyes. The arena, which had been silent for many years, finally had a showdown that the audience could feast their eyes on again. No matter how they looked at it, this was a wonderful battle that would go down in history. Amidst the enthusiastic cheers of the audience, Qin Chuan slowly walked up to Shiyu. He looked at Shiyu, who was lying on the ground with a pale face, and said softly, "Did you hear that? The audience that was cheering for you before is now mine." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, the corners of Shiyu's mouth curled up slightly. He asked Qin Chuan in a weak voice, "Are you showing off to me?" Qin Chuan shook his head and replied, "There's nothing to show off. I'm just telling you a fact. The audience doesn't like you, but the strong. No one will always be the strong, but the strong will always exist." Shiyu looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle gaze and asked, "Are you preaching to me?" "No, I just want you to recognize the reality. Don't lose yourself because of the cheers and curses of the audience." Qin Chuan smiled slightly. "I can see that you care about this very much." Shiyu was silent for a moment. After a while, he said to Qin Chuan faintly, "But I've lost everything now. Have you ever thought about taking back everything you've lost?" Qin Chuan took a deep look at Shiyu. "I know you have some problems with your body, and I have a way to help you solve them." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Shiyu was slightly stunned. She then looked at Qin Chuan with a playful expression. "So, what's your condition? I can help you open the path to the Jindan stage, or even higher realms, but the premise is that you have to be loyal to me." Qin Chuan pointed a finger at Shiyu. 10 years. Shiyu coughed and smiled. "I thought it would be a lifetime, but it turned out to be 10 years. 10 years was not a long time for a cultivator, especially a golden core cultivator who had a lifespan of at least 100 years. I gave you 10 years because I think you can only follow me for 10 years. In other words, after 10 years, I will be a higher level, but after 10 years, you may not be qualified to follow me to a higher level. Do you understand now?" It had to be said that Qin Chuan's words completely stunned Shiyu. She had never seen a young man as confident as Qin Chuan. In just 10 years, he wanted to leave behind a golden core cultivator who was once invincible in the foundation establishment stage. Could it be that this guy wanted to jump from the late stage of the foundation establishment stage to the nascent soul stage in 10 years? Even spaceship might not have such speed. "You seem surprised, but I'm just stating a fact." Qin Chuan smiled. "It's just like how everyone says that you are invincible in the foundation establishment realm and that I am not your match. But I know very well that once I get serious, you are not my match at all. Well, you won the duel. Whatever you say is right." She was speechless. The fact was that Qin Chuan won. She could not say that Qin Chuan was pretending. "So, are you willing?" Qin Chuan stretched out his hand to Shiyu, giving her the right to choose. Shiyu looked at Qin Chuan with a complicated expression and asked, "Can I give you an answer later? I need to get a person's permission, although she probably won't stop me." Qin Chuan smiled and retracted his outstretched hand. Then he said to Shiyu, "Then I'm going to enjoy the cheers of the victors. When you think about it, you can naturally find me." Inside the box, Yao Rao looked at Qin Chuan curiously and asked Ma Jiawen, "What did that guy Qin Chuan say to Shiyu?" "I don't know." Ma Jiawen shook her head. "When you see him, you can ask him yourself." "I don't want to see him." Yao Rao curled her lips. "You just want a match, so he must be extremely proud. If I go to see him now, he will definitely brag about himself crazily. I don't want to hear those words." Ma Jiawen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She really didn't understand why Qin Chuan had such an image in the eyes of Yao Rao. But having said that, this guy is really powerful, isn't he? Yao Rao's sparkling eyes looked at Qin Chuan, who was walking back and forth in the arena. Then she said to Ma Jiawen, "Among the people we know, who can be more outstanding than him?" Ma Jiawen carefully thought for a moment. "Among the holy sons and holy daughters of various demon clans, It seemed that there was no one who could be compared with Qin Chuan, but, "Princess, don't tell me you have forgotten that guy?" Ma Jiawen looked at Yaorao with subtle expression. "That white tiger of Tiger King Division." "Hey!" Having heard Ma Jiawen, Yaorao immediately spat. Then she said to Ma Jiawen, "Why did you suddenly mention that guy? You are really disappointing." Seeing Yaorao's performance, Ma Jiawen gently smiled. "I was just thinking, if our demon clan has any young talent who can compete with Qin Chuan, then it is probably that white tiger. Moreover, if Qin Chuan really went to Tianyao Mountain as a guest, then perhaps that white tiger will come forward." Hearing Ma Jiawen, the complexion of Yaorao suddenly became gloomy. Then she coldly said, "If that white tiger dares to do bad things to Qin Chuan, then I will definitely teach him a lesson. Even if Tiger King personally comes forward, he won't be able to stop me." Having heard Yaorao, Ma Jiawen gently shook his head and didn't say anything. If that white tiger really got angry, then Yaorao really might not be his opponent. He won. He actually defeated Shiyu. The young woman elegantly stood in front of the window, looking at that tall and straight youth's figure. Her eyes flashed with a touch of faint nostalgia. In those days, that person was also so powerful, so invincible, no one was his opponent. "Housekeeper, go and bring Shiyu back. Arrange the best medical team for him. I don't want Shiyu's body to deteriorate again." "Yes, I know. I will go and arrange it." The old steward respectfully complied and left with the order. Chapter 500. Let us once again welcome our winner, Qin Chuan, with warm applause and cheers. On the stage, the host of the arena excitedly walked to Qin Chuan's side and handed a golden microphone to Qin Chuan. He asked, "Qin Chuan, you just defeated the invincible Shi Yu and became the new invincible. How do you feel now?" Qin Chuan grinned when he heard this. "If it weren't for the competition rules, I would even want to start the next 1-on-5 challenge. Well, it's not really a challenge because it's not difficult for me." Boom! As soon as Qin Chuan's voice fell, the audience suddenly boiled up. The audience liked to see such a scene. A proud young man saying arrogant words and provoking all opponents. The host didn't expect Qin Chuan to say such words, but after the surprise, he quickly reacted and asked Qin Chuan, "Then how far do you think you can go in this 1-on-1 challenge?" Qin Chuan smiled and said lightly, "There are a few steps in the challenge, and I can go that far." Wow! The audience boiled up again because of Qin Chuan's arrogant words. Since the arena was built, no one had ever been able to go to the end of the 1-on-1 challenge. Everyone thought that Qin Chuan couldn't win the final victory, but they liked Qin Chuan's arrogant performance. Shiyu, who had just been carried away by the staff, couldn't help but laugh when she heard Qin Chuan's words and saw the audience's reaction. If these people knew that Qin Chuan was confident that he could reach the nascent soul stage within 10 years, the audience's cheers would be even louder. When Qin Chuan was being interviewed, she was also carried to the arena's medical room. The old butler had already brought the city's top medical team and was waiting there. When they saw Shiyu being carried in, they immediately carried out a comprehensive examination of her body. The results of the examination were not ideal. The old housekeeper looked at Shiyu with a complicated expression and said in a low voice, "Your body is too weak. After this treatment, you might really stop at the foundation establishment realm for the rest of your life." If it was said that Shiyu had a 10% chance of advancing to the Golden Core stage before this battle, then after this battle, Shiyu's chances of advancing to the Golden Core stage had become 0. Upon hearing the old butler's words, Shiyu didn't reveal any sad expression because he had already expected this outcome. However, this didn't mean that he would give up on himself and his wonderful future. "Uncle Zhong, I want to see Madam." The old housekeeper, who was called Uncle Zhong, nodded and said to Shiyu, "You receive treatment first. I will ask Madam to come over." In less than 10 minutes, Uncle Zhong and Madam came to the medical room together. Looking at Shiyu, who was lying on the bed with various tubes inserted in her body, Uncle Zhong's face couldn't help but reveal a touch of sadness. He whispered to Madam, "Madam, after this battle, Shiyu's foundation is completely destroyed, and he probably won't live for more than 10 years. Hearing Uncle Zhong's words, Madame's eyes couldn't help but reveal a touch of sadness. She whispered, Zhong Qiyu, am sorry for him. Madam. Qiyu looked at the sad expression on Zhong Qiyu's face and smiled slightly. If Madame hadn't saved me that year, I'm afraid that now my bones would have rotted away. How could I have enjoyed the limitless glory of the past 10 years? Zhong Qiyu looked at Qiyu with a complicated expression and asked, What do you want to say to me? Qiyu pursed his lips and said, In the future, I want to temporarily leave Madame and follow Qin Chuan. Hearing Shiyu's words, Zhong Qiyu's eyes couldn't help but flash a touch of surprise. Uncle Zhong was also extremely surprised. They didn't expect Qiyu to plan to follow Qin Chuan. In fact, I didn't intend to follow him. Qiyu whispered, but now I'm completely crippled. There's no hope for me to advance to the gold course stage. I can't do anything by staying with Madame. I say no more. Zhong Qiyu interrupted Shiyu's words and smiled slightly. Do what you want to do. Anything is fine. I respect your decision and support your decision. This has nothing to do with Qin Chuan. It's only about you. Qiyu looked at Zhong Qiyu with touched eyes and said in a choked voice, Thank you. There was a sea of people outside the arena. Everyone was looking forward to the final result of the duel. Although everyone agreed that the final winner would be Qiyu, they couldn't help but feel a little nervous before the result came out. He won. He won. Suddenly, there was a burst of cheers in the arena. A horse-faced demon clan rushed out of the arena and roared to the sky. Everyone heard the horse-faced demon clan's roar and quickly asked, Who won? Who won? Facing the anxious crowd, the horse-faced demon clan responded loudly, Qin Chuan won. The Invincible Foundation establishment, Qiyu lost. Qin Chuan won. Horse-faced goblin's words were like a sudden clap of thunder in the crowd. Everyone was stunned by this unexpected result. No one would have thought that the final winner would be the unknown Qin Chuan. The legend of the Western language's Invincible Foundation establishment had been shattered. As the news spread farther and farther, the entire mountain city was boiling. Everyone was shocked by the result of the duel. Qin Chuan's name resounded throughout the mountain city. After the interview, Qin Chuan returned to the box. When Lion Duke saw Qin Chuan return, he laughed and pointed at Qin Chuan. You're the most shameless guy I have ever seen. How could you say something like that? Qin Chuan grinned and said to Lion Duke, Anyway, I won. Whatever I say is right. If they want to refute me, they have to at least wait until I lose the duel. You are right. It even makes a lot of sense. Lion Duke reached out and patted Qin Chuan's shoulder. He said to Qin Chuan, Although your performance has some shortcomings, there are still many things that are amazing. After we go back, I will help you review this match and find out your shortcomings. After absorbing and digesting this battle experience, you will definitely grow tremendously. Thank you, big cousin. Qin Chuan laughed. It was really lucky to have an elder who could point out your shortcomings and mistakes at any time. Let's go and withdraw the money. Lion Duke laughed and pulled Qin Chuan out of the box. When Qin Chuan heard Lion Duke's words, he asked curiously, Withdraw money. Did you bet? How much did you bet? Not much, not much. Just 1,000,000 spiritual value points. Lion Duke laughed. Your odds are very high. This time, after deducting the principal, I made 3,000,000. Qin Chuan couldn't help but slap his thigh in annoyance. How could he miss such a good opportunity to make money? After his performance today, it would be difficult to have such high odds in the future. Chapter 501. After the result of the battle between Qin Chuan and Qiyu spread throughout Mountain City, Qin Chuan and the new Invincible became the hottest topic in Mountain City. Wherever there were people, there would be people talking about the battle between Qin Chuan and Qiyu. It could be said that it was quite lively. However, these topics had nothing to do with Qin Chuan. After returning to the hotel, he began to rest. He didn't leave the room until the injury on his abdomen had healed. Seeing Qin Chuan come out, Liu Baron, who was eating, immediately called Qin Chuan over. He said to Qin Chuan, You are now the hottest topic in Mountain City. Almost everyone is talking about you. Some people have already started to arrange your opponents for the next 1-on-5 battle. Hearing Liu Baron's words, Qin Xuan grinned and asked, "Are these netizens so free?" While they were talking, Qin Xuan had already sat down beside Liu Baron. He glanced at the screen in front of Liu Baron and looked at the unfamiliar names listed on it. He asked curiously, "Who are these people?" "These are all Foundation establishment stage powerhouses who hang out in the Mountain City arena all year round. They're the more famous ones." Liu Baron introduced to Qin Xuan. "You defeated Shiyu, which means you were standing at the top of the Foundation establishment stage. Even if 5 people in the Foundation establishment stage join forces, they may not be able to defeat you. After all, Shiyu participated in the 1-on-1 battle, and she even made it to the 5th level. You are stronger than Shiyu, so naturally, your opponents will be stronger." Liu Baron's words were very reasonable. If the arena randomly arranged 5 opponents for Qin Xuan could easily win the battle. However, the excitement of the battle would definitely be reduced. The audience's viewing experience would definitely be very poor, and it wouldn't achieve the effect that Qin Xuan wanted to train himself. Therefore, Qin Xuan's opponents would only get stronger and stronger. Then I'll have to do some research on these people. Qin Xuan glanced at the screen and memorized the names of these people. He planned to study their combat styles when he had time in the future. Just as Lion Baron was about to review the situation for Qin Xuan, the doorbell suddenly rang. Qin Xuan looked at the visitor's face displayed on the door, and the corner of his mouth couldn't help but curl up slightly. Lion Lord looked at Qin Xuan with surprise and asked, "Did you ask him to come?" "No, he came willingly." Qin Xuan chuckled. "Please come in." As Qin Xuan's voice fell, the door slowly opened. Shiyu, who was dressed in plain clothes, walked in. He looked at Qin Xuan with a complicated expression and asked, "Does our agreement still stand?" "Of course." Qin Xuan smiled faintly and said to Shiyu, "Come and sit." Shiyu walked to the sofa and sat down. Then he said to Qin Xuan, "I'm willing to accept your conditions. If you help me repair my foundation, I'll work for you for 10 years. Hearing Shiyu's words, Liu Baron looked at Qin Xuan with a subtle expression. He didn't expect Qin Xuan to recruit Shiyu. In Liu Baron's eyes, although Shiyu wasn't a genius, he was a hard-working genius. Such a genius was much rarer and stronger than the former. If Qin Xuan could really repair Shiyu's foundation, then with Shiyu's accumulation over the years, he would surely become a gold core expert. He would quickly rise among the gold core experts and become a powerful helper by Qin Xuan's side. Qin Xuan didn't immediately respond to Shiyu. Instead, he looked at Liu Baron and asked, "Big cousin, that thing should be able to repair his foundation, right?" Liu Baron looked deeply at Qin Xuan and said, "It can, but are you sure you want to do it? That thing can not only repair his foundation, but it can also improve his talent. It can make him more outstanding. For people in lower realms, that thing is like a panacea. It can be used in all aspects." Hearing Liu Baron's words, Qin Xuan smiled and replied, "I think he's worth the investment. Since you've already made your decision, then I won't say anything more." Liu Baron looked meaningfully at Qin Xuan and said, "But you have to be careful. Don't reveal your wealth. If you don't have a good countermeasure, then I advise you to think twice before you act." Liu Baron didn't avoid Shiyu's words. He reminded Qin Xuan to be careful of Shiyu. If Shiyu betrayed Qin Xuan because of his greed, then Qin Xuan would suffer a fatal blow. Shiyu sat silently on the side and listened to the conversation between Qin Xuan and Liu Baron. He was very curious about the thing that Liu Baron and Qin Xuan mentioned. He wanted to know what it was that had such a magical effect. He didn't have any objections to Liu Baron's kind reminder. After all, he and Qin Xuan had only known each other for less than half a day. It was normal for Qin Xuan to be cautious. It would be strange if he trusted him unconditionally. Since Qin Xuan planned to use the leg meat to repair Shiyu's foundation, he naturally had a countermeasure in mind. He turned to Shiyu and said, "If you want me to help you repair your foundation, you have to swear with your blood that you will not do anything to harm me for 10 years. You have to listen to my orders and arrangements. If you violate this, you will be punished by the heavens. Qin paused for a moment and said, "Of course, I won't ask you to do anything that will cost your life. I have no objections." Shiyu didn't hesitate. He bit his finger and began to swear with his blood. "I, Shiyu, swear that if Qin helps me repair my foundation, I will follow him through life and death. I will obey Qin orders for 10 years. I will not betray Qin or do anything that will harm Qin. If I violate this oath, I will be punished by the heavens." After Shiyu finished his oath, the blood on his fingers suddenly turned into a blood mist and rushed towards Qin. Qin didn't stop it and let the blood mist rush into his body. Qin closed his eyes and felt it carefully. He then opened his eyes and looked at Shiyu. He smiled and said, "From now on, you are my partner. From now on, you don't have to do anything. Just focus on repairing your foundation." While speaking, Qin took out a palm-sized leg meat from his storage ring and put it in front of Shiyu. He said, "This is for you to repair your foundation." Shiyu looked at the leg meat in front of him and felt the amazing energy contained in it. He couldn't help but show a rare look of excitement. The way to use this leg meat is very simple. Just swallow it directly. But remember, you have to eat it multiple times. You only need to eat a fingernail-sized piece at a time. If you eat too much, you will die. Qin felt that this reminder was necessary. If Shiyu ate too much and died, he would lose a lot. Chapter 502. There was a very special place in the World Mountains. It was shrouded in dark clouds all year round, and there was never a clear day. There were ghosts everywhere in the forest, and the qi was heavy. Very few ordinary people were willing to come here. Those who liked to come here were mostly cultivators. It was also because of this that this place was called Mountain. 1,000 years ago, there was a spirit in Mountain who was successful in cultivation. He called himself Mountain Lord and subdued all the cultivators in Mountain. He built the famous Mountain City. Today, Mountain City had developed into a paradise for cultivators. Every day and night, countless cultivators would party in the city. Recently, Mountain City welcomed the Mountain Lord's 1,000th birthday. The atmosphere was even gloomier than before, and the sound of ghosts crying and wolves howling could be heard. Mountain City, City Lord's mansion backyard. A slim figure in a white dress stood on top of a rockery. She looked into the distance, and there was no expression on her pale face. She was as cold as an iceberg that would not melt for 10,000 years. Da-da-da. A series of footsteps came from afar. An ugly woman in a black uniform slowly walked to the rockery. She whispered to the slim figure on top of the rockery, "Miss Gio, it's time for lunch." The woman's voice was very hoarse and harsh. It had been almost 2 years, but Miss Gio still could not get used to it. She would always frown. She turned to look at the ugly woman and said lightly, "I know. You can leave now." After the ugly woman left, Miss Gio looked into the distance for a while. Then, she walked down the rockery and slowly walked into the dining room to enjoy her daily lunch. Looking at the Mountain ghost stone, frost sand, and grass coldworm on the table, Miss Gio frowned again. Although eating these cold things would improve her cultivation, she still did not like to eat them. After a sigh, she took a bite of the Mountain ghost stone. Then, she picked up the news on the table and casually flipped through it. When she saw Mountain City challenge against 1,000 cultivators again, Qin defeats Shiyu, Invincible Foundation building legend shattered. Seeing the news headline, Miss Gio stopped eating. Her eyes were fixed on the 2 words Qin on the newspaper. The flames of hatred quickly ignited in her chest. Qin, Qin, Qin. A shrill roar resounded through the city lord's mansion, startling countless jackdaws. The news of Qin's victory over Shiyu had spread throughout the entire World Mountain after a day of fermenting. Now, almost everyone in the World Mountain knew that a new Invincible Foundation building cultivator had appeared in the Mountain City. It was Qin from the Star Dragon Federation's Black Moon Combat Academy. Above the boundless sea of clouds, a huge fleet was slowly moving forward. On the flagship, a young man with long, flowing yellow hair, was watching the battle video on his photon computer. He clicked his tongue and sighed. I really didn't expect that Shiyu would lose in his first battle. I've been thinking about him for the past 3 years for nothing. Next to the yellow-haired young man was a young man with a neat buzz cut. He chuckled. You can think about someone else. For example, this Qin. Compared to Shiyu, he's more like an invincible foundation-building cultivator. Speaking of Qin, Blue River, you're also a graduate of the Black Moon Combat Academy. Do you know anything about him? The yellow-haired young man looked at the buzz-cut young man curiously and asked, What do you think of him? Blue River thought for a moment, then said to the yellow-haired young man, Although I've never met him, I've heard a lot about him. Do you want to hear more? It's not that I want to discourage you, Li Kun. Although you're older than him, you might not be his opponent. How do you know I'm not his opponent if we haven't fought? Li Kun curled his lips. In any case, I'm still invincible in the Second Army, okay? Tisich. Blue River made a disdainful sound. Qin became famous at a young age. He was the MVP of the 6 Great Academies ranking competition. He also displayed his invincible might in the carefree secret realm, consecutively killing Zerg. How can you compare to him? What? Are all the people who have died by my hands weak? Li Kun was unconvinced. Just you wait. I'll go ask the general for a leave of absence. I'm going to Mountain City to properly meet this Qin. Then let's go together. Blue River looked at Li Kun. To be honest, I've received an invitation from Mountain City's arena. They hope that I can participate in the second stage of the 1 against 1,000 challenge and beat Qin's opponent. Hearing Blue River's words, Li Kun's eyes instantly widened. He looked at Blue River in disbelief. They actually invited you to be Qin's opponent? Why didn't they invite me? Blue River looked at Li Kun innocently and calmly said, Maybe they don't think you're strong enough. After all, the people who received the invitation this time are all outstanding foundation stage cultivators. Bah! Li Kun was angry. They definitely didn't invite me because they think that you guys are too strong for me to join. Qin isn't your opponent at all. That must be it. Whatever you say. Blue River looked at Li Kun with a smile. In any case, I've already asked for a leave of absence. Saying this, Blue River took out a leave of absence from his storage ring and smiled at Li Kun. I'm leaving this afternoon. Can you still make it? Li Kun saw the leave of absence in Blue River's hand, and his eyes instantly turned red. He roared and ran towards the general's command room. Just you wait. Hearing Li Kun shout from afar, Blue River lightly shrugged and put away the leave of absence. He turned his head and looked in the direction of Mountain City. His eyes flashed with a subtle light. Let me see just how strong the Qin that Zhe praised to the heavens is. Heavenly Monster Mountain, Heavenly Monster Temple. The Heavenly Monster Emperor sat on a golden bench. His gaze was deep as he looked at the white-haired old man kneeling in front of him. He calmly asked, Tiger Lord, why have you come this time? Tiger Lord raised his head to look at the Heavenly Monster Emperor and respectfully said, Reporting to your majesty, I've come on the Tiger King's orders. I've come on behalf of the Tiger King's son to ask for Princess Rao's hand in marriage. Hearing Tiger Lord's words, the Heavenly Monster Emperor's expression didn't change. His tone was indifferent as he said, A marriage proposal is such an important matter. Why hasn't the Tiger King come personally? Could it be that you look down on my Heavenly Monster Temple? Your Majesty, please calm down. The Tiger King can't come personally because he has important matters to attend to. Tiger Lord respectfully said to the Heavenly Monster Emperor, The prince is currently at a critical stage of returning to his roots. He needs the Tiger King to personally protect the prince, so he can't come personally. When the prince succeeds, the Tiger King will definitely come personally to apologize to your majesty. Returning to his roots, the Heavenly Monster Emperor looked deeply at Tiger Lord. The prince is truly talented. He actually managed to reach the condition of returning to his roots before becoming a heavenly commander. His future achievements will definitely be limitless. It's just that I can't agree to this marriage proposal for now. Chapter 503. Ever since the battle between Qin Xuan and Shi Yu, the people of the mountain city began to look forward to the next exciting battle. 2 days later, the mountain city arena finally announced the list of challengers for the second stage of the 1-against-1,000 challenge. The challenger was Qin Xuan. The challengers were Blue River and Li Kun from the 2nd Legion of the Star Dragon Federation, Wang Wu from the Mountain City, and Niu Yao from the Devil General. After the list was announced, it immediately caused a heated discussion. No one thought that the second stage of the challenge would attract the young experts of the 2nd Legion of the Star Dragon Federation. The people who lived in a mountain city all year round had a certain understanding of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Legions of the Star Dragon Federation. Blue River and Li Kun were well known among the younger generation of the 2nd Legion. Whether it was Blue River or Li Kun, they were both cultivators of the perfect foundation stage. They were only one step away from the Golden Core stage. They had been baptized by the flames of war. As experts who had gained experience in the war, their strength was naturally unquestionable. As a regular of the arena, Wang Wu was one of the few people who could compete with Shi Yu. He was once known as the #1 person below Shi Yu. He was also at the perfect foundation stage. Although Fei Ying was only a high-level Fei Ying, his strength was slightly weaker. As a member of the Rat Clan, he was extremely good at hiding and sneak attacks. He was proficient in the way of the assassin. It was impossible to guard against him. Finally, Niu Yao was the son of the arena's manager, Niu Meng. He was also a regular of the arena. His brute force was astonishing. He was best at frontal attacks. The combination of these 5 people was an all-rounder, a frontal attacker, and an assassin. It could be said that it was a very complete lineup. Qin Xuan had to face 5 such powerful opponents at the same time. It was even more difficult than facing 2 Shi Yu at the same time. For a moment, the people were full of expectations for this battle. They all wanted to see whether Qin Xuan would continue to create the legend of being invincible in the foundation stage or quickly wither away like a flash in the pan. When he saw the list of challengers, Qin Xuan's mind was also blank. The second stage of the challenge had local challengers from the mountain city. Unexpectedly, the 2nd Legion of the Star Dragon Federation was also participating. What was going on? Qin Xuan, it seems like you're not very popular in the human world. When Lion Duke saw the list, he couldn't help but laugh. Look, even the elites of the 2nd Legion have come. Qin Xuan looked at Blue River and Li Kun's names on the list and helplessly said to Lion Duke, I feel like these two are just here to join the fun. I've never seen them before. Qin Xuan had also thought that when his reputation spread out, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Corps that the Star Dragon Federation had arranged at the Boundary Mountain would send people to watch the show. However, he did not expect that these people would actually see the show in the ring and become his opponent. Swords and sabers had no eyes on the arena. Facing the members of the 2nd Legion, he really didn't know whether he should go all out or go easy on them. If he went all out, it was inevitable that there would be casualties. It would be fine if he was injured, but if he accidentally killed Blue River or Li Kun, how would the 2nd Army view him? If this matter were to spread back to the Star Dragon Federation, how would the others view him? But if he went easy on them, it would be difficult for him to display 100% of his strength. Facing such strong opponents, there was a high possibility that he would lose the battle. Once he lost, even if Li Kun and Blue River went easy on him and didn't kill him, the other 3 might not go easy on him. So regarding Blue River and Li Kun coming to join the fun, Qin Xuan had a headache. He really didn't know what to do. Don't think too much. When the boat reaches the bridge head, it will cross the bridge. Lion Duke saw Qin Xuan's worry and laughed. He said to Qin Xuan, the 2 of them have experienced war on the battlefield. They naturally know what to do. Don't worry. Hearing Lion Duke's comfort, Qin Xuan felt that Lion Duke's words were reasonable. He temporarily put down the worry in his heart and said to Lion Duke, this border mountain connects the 2 worlds. There are many people eyeing the things in my hands. Big cousin, you better be careful. After hearing Qin Xuan's reminder, Lion Duke smiled and said to Qin Xuan, don't worry. As long as the people who come are not in the nascent soul stage, as long as they show a trace of hostility towards you, I will immediately sense it. If a nascent soul stage cultivator comes, I will also sense it. You don't have to worry about your safety. I won't take your things for free. Qinchuan nodded and didn't say anything more. He began to focus on studying the battle videos of his opponents in the next round. He repeatedly deduced and pondered. Starry Sky City, Central District, First Building. In the elevator, Zhou Lin looked at Zhou Meng standing in front of her and asked, "Father, that captain of yours, he's a nascent soul stage cultivator, right?" Hearing Zhou Lin's words, Zhou Meng nodded and then shook his head. He sighed and said, "Back then, the captain's talent was amazing. He was already in the half-step nascent soul stage at such a young age. If it wasn't for the battle that damaged his foundation, he should have already been in the nascent soul stage." Zhou Lin heard this and asked curiously, "Who beat him up like this? Since he's in the half-step nascent soul stage, he shouldn't be a nobody, right?" "I don't know the specific situation at that time. I only know that the captain was ambushed when he went to chase the enemy. Then, he was seriously injured and retired." Zhou Meng sighed. "If I was there at that time, I could have helped the captain defeat the enemy. Then, the captain wouldn't have been reduced to this. As for the captain's name, he's called Shangguan Yuanhao." Zhou Lin murmured the name Shangguan Yuanhao in her heart. However, she didn't have any impression of it in her memory. She looked up at Zhou Meng and asked, "As long as we get heavenly pure water for Senior Shangguan, you should be able to recover, right? Theoretically, there shouldn't be any problems. However, it's unknown whether the captain will have the chance to reach the nascent soul stage in this lifetime." Zhou Meng turned to Zhou Lin and said seriously, "This time, we've paid a huge price for the captain's recovery. The captain will definitely remember our kindness. With his support, your status in Black City will definitely be improved. You can even get a recommendation letter from the city lord himself and directly become a reserve heir of Kunlun." Zhou Lin nodded slightly. "I know. I'll work hard." "All right." Zhou Meng seemed to think of something and said to Zhou Lin, "I can see that the captain is very interested in Qinchuan. At first, I wanted to introduce Qinchuan to the captain as his disciple. However, Qinchuan and we don't have the same idea, so this matter was dropped. If there's a chance in the future, you can bring Qinchuan here and let them meet. Maybe Qinchuan will change his mind and become one of us." Chapter 504. In Mountain City, the second round of the 1 against 1,000 challenge was about to begin. In the private room, Qinchuan looked at the packed stadium and said to Lion Duke, "Big cousin, is the people's hearts based on morality or the strong?" Hearing Qinchuan's words, Lion Duke laughed. "You little brat, you're thinking nonsense again. Going against morality will only make you feel uneasy, but you won't lose your life. But going against the will of the strong will lead to death. If it were you, would you be willing to sacrifice your life for morality, or would you be willing to drag out an ignoble existence under the will of the strong? In other words, the will of the strong is where morality lies. Look at the audience here. When you show your strong side, they will cheer for you and go crazy for you. But once you become weak one day and are no longer strong, then they will definitely be among the people who will mock you and look down on you." Lion Duke looked at Qinchuan meaningfully and asked, "Do you understand?" Qinchuan faintly sighed. "You're right. Only the strong have the right to talk about morality. The weak need to struggle for survival. So you must always be strong. Otherwise, there will be a day when you will struggle for survival." Lion Duke took a deep look at Qinchuan. "In fact, you are now struggling to survive. From the fact that you are willing to use treasures in exchange for 3 chances for me to help you, and from the fact that you're trying to win over Shiyu, you should already be aware of this crisis." Qinchuan didn't deny Lion Duke's words. He already had a strong sense of danger. If he didn't take advantage of the current situation and instead waited until the real danger came, then it would be too late. "Let's go." Qinchuan waved at Lion Duke. "Wait for me to come back victorious." In the waiting area, Li Kun listened to the noise in the arena and said to Blue River beside him, "I remember that Mountain City's arena hasn't been this lively in a long time." Indeed, Blue River nodded. Ever since Shiyu suddenly disappeared 3 years ago, The arena's popularity has been declining day by day. Now that the arena is lively again, it's still related to Shiyu. If it weren't for Shiyu's reappearance, Qingchuan's 1 against 1,000 challenge wouldn't have attracted so much attention. What do you think Qingchuan's chances of winning today? Li Kun laughed mischievously at Blue River. I feel like he's in a very difficult situation right now because of the two of us. I don't know what his chances are, but if we don't go all out, we will lose. Blue River glanced at Li Kun. If we can't beat Qingchuan with the two of us and 3 other helpers, then we'll lose face for the second army. The general won't let us off so easily. Hearing Blue River's words, Li Kun sighed helplessly. I originally wanted to go easy on Qingchuan so that he wouldn't lose too miserably. But after hearing what you said, I can't go easy on him anymore. If I go easy on him, then I'll be irresponsible to the second army. Okay, let's stop chatting. Blue River pointed at the stage outside. He's here. Li Kun subconsciously looked in the direction Blue River was pointing at. A tall and straight youth was slowly walking through the corridor towards the stage. When a youth figure appeared on the stage, the arena suddenly exploded with earth-shattering cheers. Everyone was shouting crazily, looking forward to another spectacular match. At the same time, they also looked forward to Qingchuan winning again and continuing his undefeatable legend. Facing the audience's cheers, Qingchuan appeared very calm. This was because he knew that these cheers weren't for him, but for the strong. In the room, Zhong Qiu looked at Qingchuan with a complicated expression. She said to the old housekeeper beside her, "He's become more mature than before. His will is firm. He won't be moved by the audience's cheers." The old housekeeper heard this and replied in a low voice, "People are always growing. The more they experience, the more they grow. There's a price to pay for growing up. People who live happily are often naive and childish." Zhong Qiu sighed softly. "I actually hope that he can be a simple, ordinary person. Maybe his life won't be colorful, but he has to be safe and stable, without any worries." Everyone has worries. Cultivators have worries about cultivation. Mortals have worries about life. No one can be free from worries. The old housekeeper looked at Zhong Qiu's back and said softly, "Madam, his life is destined to not be ordinary." "Maybe you're right." Zhong Qiu didn't say anything else. She quietly prepared to enjoy the next match. A minute after Qingchuan went on stage, Li Kun's group of 5 also lined up and slowly walked out of the corridor, arriving on the stage. There was no need for introductions. The audience already recognized the 5 of them. A portion of the audience already began to loudly cheer their names, hoping that they could defeat Qingchuan and shatter Qingchuan's undefeatable legend. Li Kun slowly walked in front of Qingchuan. He smiled at Qingchuan and said to Qingchuan, "Let me introduce myself. I'm Li Kun. I'm from the vanguard of the Star Dragon Federation's 2nd Corps. Today, I came here to see your strength. You don't have to worry about our safety. We all have emergency defensive equipment on us. As long as we encounter a life-threatening situation, the equipment will be activated. That way, we'll lose and won't continue to attack you." When he heard Li Kun's words, Qingchuan smiled faintly and nodded. "That's for the best. To be honest, I was still thinking about this problem previously. Now, I can finally be at ease and boldly fight." Although Qingchuan hadn't heard of emergency defensive equipment, he thought that Li Kun wouldn't lie to him about this. After all, Li Kun wouldn't joke about his own life. At this moment, Blue River also walked over. His eyes subtly sized up Qingchuan. Then he said to Qingchuan, "I'm Blue River. I'm also from the Star Dragon Federation's 2nd Corps. Before joining the army, I was a student at the Black Moon Combat Academy. Your instructor Lan Weiwei and your classmate Bluepool are all my relatives. Aze used to mention you to me." Qingchuan heard this and looked at Blue River with surprise. Then he said to Blue River, "Hello, senior. I didn't think that I'd meet you here. Aze used to tell me that you were the most talented, hardworking, and also the strongest person he'd ever met. I didn't believe him at first. I thought that Aze hadn't seen the world and thought that everyone he met was strong. Now, it seems that I misunderstood Aze. I won't be merciful in the battle later. I hope that you won't be merciful either. Chapter 505. Woo woo woo. When the horn sounded in the arena, the 6 people on the stage were ready to fight. The audience also subconsciously lowered their voices and began to hold their breaths. They opened their eyes wide and nervously waited for the start of the battle. They didn't want to miss any exciting scene. In the melodious sound of the horn, the assassin of the Rat clan, Fei-in, quickly hid his figure and disappeared from the arena. Niu Yao took a step forward and roared loudly. His figure suddenly expanded and turned into a huge bull, ready to charge. The remaining Li Kun, Lan He, and Wang Wu stood on the left and right of Niu Yao, ready to attack together with Niu Yao. They didn't communicate with each other beforehand, but everyone knew in their hearts that this was what they should do. Seeing that everyone was ready, Qin Xuan smiled and took out a talisman pen and a disc array from his storage ring. He was ready. Some people didn't know that Qin Xuan was a talisman array master, but they knew after watching Qin Xuan's last battle with Shiyu. At this time, seeing that Qin Xuan was ready to inscribe talisman arrays, Niu Yao's bull face showed a disdainful smile. He wouldn't let Qin Xuan inscribe talisman arrays. Buzz! The moment the horn stopped, Niu Yao immediately charged at Qin Xuan. The rest followed closely behind, full of murderous intent. Facing the strong attacks of Niu Yao and the other 3, Qin Xuan didn't have any intention to face them head-on. He retreated in a flash, but his hands didn't stop, quickly inscribing talisman arrays. Seeing the chasing scene, the audience burst into loud cheers again. They hoped to see Qin Xuan inscribe talisman arrays as soon as possible to break the opponent's formation. They also hoped to see Niu Yao and the other 3 catch up with Qin Xuan, forcing Qin Xuan to give up inscribing talisman arrays and fight hand-to-hand. Or maybe Fei-in would jump out at the critical moment and give Qin Xuan a fatal blow. In short, they wanted to see an exciting battle, not a boring scene of people chasing each other. Qin Xuan didn't know what the audience was thinking, but even if he knew, he wouldn't care, just like how the audience didn't care if he won or lost. They just wanted to see an exciting battle. When Qin Xuan saw that Niu Yao had already caught up with him and there was no way to retreat, he stopped running. It wasn't because he didn't want to run anymore, but because he could fly. Lightning wings, activate! Qin Xuan shouted in a low voice, and the disc array suddenly burst into a blue light. A pair of wings condensed from the power of thunder appeared on his back, and he flapped them and rushed into the sky. Seeing Qin Xuan rise into the sky, Niu Yao's face couldn't help but reveal a hint of annoyance. Foundation establishment cultivators didn't have the ability to fly for a long time. Now that Qin Xuan rose into the sky, it was impossible for them to chase after Qin Xuan. However, just when Niu Yao had this thought in his mind, Blue River and Li Kun looked at each other and simultaneously activated the device on their backs. A pair of extremely light cicada wings. Whoosh! The cicada wings were light, but their flying speed was extremely fast. In an instant, they closed in on Qin Xuan. Seeing Blue River and Li Kun also fly up, Qin Xuan was also shocked. He hurriedly increased his speed to open up the distance. Unexpectedly, Blue River and Li Kun split up. One continued to chase after him, while the other went to the other side to surround him. Seeing this, Qin Xuan knew that he couldn't delay any longer. He turned around and rushed towards Li Kun behind him, ready to take advantage of this opportunity to get rid of Li Kun first. Seeing Qin Xuan rush towards him, Li Kun's face suddenly revealed a hint of excitement. Just as he was about to meet him in battle, he suddenly sensed a fatal danger. Absolute. A sword attack came, and Li Kun's face revealed a look of horror. In the next moment, his body was enveloped by a transparent ball of light. The astonishing sword energy stabbed into the ball of light, but it didn't cause any damage to Li Kun. Instead, the ball of light's volume suddenly shrank by more than half. Seeing this scene, Qin Xuan couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. Thinking about it, this transparent ball of light should be the emergency defensive device that Li Kun mentioned before. In that case, Li Kun could be considered to have been killed by him. Not far away, Blue River saw Chuan activate Li Kun's emergency defensive device with a single sword attack. He also revealed a look of horror. The power of that sword attack, just now, was too terrifying. The spectators were also stunned by Chuan's domineering one-shot of Li Kun. Those who had watched the previous match knew that Chuan had used the same sword attack to one-shot Shiyu. Seeing Chuan break up his opponents one by one and obtain a certain victory, the spectators were extremely excited and cheered, especially those who had bet heavily on Chuan. They couldn't wait for Chuan to defeat all of his opponents with a single sword attack. After dealing with Li Kun, Chuan didn't hesitate. He turned around and rushed towards Blue River. Seeing this, Blue River immediately roared. He mobilized all of the spiritual energy in his body and raised his hand to slap Chuan. Storm Wave. As Blue River roared, a huge wave appeared out of nowhere in front of Chuan. It slammed towards Chuan. Chuan was like a small boat in a storm. It looked like he could capsize at any time. Facing Blue River's attack, Chuan didn't have any intention of dodging. He poured all of his spiritual energy into the long sword in his hand. With a slash, the roaring wave was cut in half. The thunder wings on his back flapped, and he rushed forward. Seeing Chuan rush towards him, Blue River roared again, Storm Wave. Following Blue River's roar, the huge wave that Chuan had cut in half suddenly turned around and rushed towards Chuan again. Chuan sensed the change behind him. He immediately engraved a thunderbolt glyph and increased his speed. His figure was like lightning. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Blue River. Roar! A world-shaking dragon's roar resounded. A blazing dragon's breath instantly appeared in front of Blue River. Blue River didn't have any chance to dodge. It also activated Blue River's emergency defense system and successfully killed Blue River. From the start of the battle until now, only a short 2 minutes had passed. Chuan had already defeated Li Kun and Blue River. From tactics to strength, it could be said that he had completely crushed his opponents. On the stage, Wang Wu and Niu Yao's expressions were extremely ugly. As long as Chuan didn't come down from the sky, they couldn't do anything to Chuan. And just when this thought appeared in their minds, something astonishing happened. An illusory figure abruptly appeared above Chuan's head. The figure held a dagger that flickered with cold light and directly stabbed towards Chuan's dragon head. That Mouse Clan assassin, Flying Shadow, who had been hiding himself all this time, had unknowingly appeared in the sky. Furthermore, he had seized the slight opening that Chuan had revealed when attacking Blue River and decisively attacked. Chapter 506. When Chuan noticed the danger above his head, it was too late to dodge. Therefore, he decisively chose to remove the dragon form and use the body shrinking mechanism of returning to human form to avoid Fei Yin's assassination. When he saw Chuan return to human form and avoid his fatal blow, Fei Yin retreated without hesitation, not giving Chuan any chance to fight back. Seeing this scene, Chuan couldn't help but frown slightly. A guy like Fei Yin who was good at hiding was the most difficult to deal with. At this time, the audience also exclaimed at the thrilling scene just now. If Chuan hadn't removed the dragon form in time, maybe he would have been a dead dragon now. No one would doubt the professional ability of an assassin. If there was no possibility of killing in one blow, Fei Yin would never make a move. However, how did Fei Yin, as a mouse, fly in the air? Just as the audience was thinking about this question, Chuan had already put the matter of Fei Yin to the back of his mind. He believed that with Fei Yin's caution, as long as he didn't reveal any flaws, Fei Yin would never make a move. This could be said to be a common problem for assassins. Without absolute certainty, they would rather miss a good opportunity than make a move rashly. Under everyone's gaze, Chuan once again took out a new disc array and a talisman pen, and once again began to concentrate on inscribing the talisman array. Wang Wu and Niu Yao in the arena were helpless when they saw this scene. As people who were good at close combat, They couldn't cause any interference to Qin Chuan. Now they could only count on Fei Yin. However, with Fei Yin's character, he wouldn't make a move easily. About 100 meters behind Qin Chuan, a mouse with a pair of fleshy wings on its back was staring at Qin Chuan with a pair of small eyes, looking for any possible flaws on Qin Chuan's body. Once found, he would definitely appear again and launch a fatal blow on Qin Chuan. Unfortunately, he stared at Qin Chuan for a long time and couldn't find any flaws on Qin Chuan's body. As an assassin, patience was the most important thing. However, seeing that Qin Chuan's talisman array was about to be completed, the sense of crisis in his heart was getting stronger and stronger. If he didn't make a move now, he might not have a chance. Thinking of this, Fei Yin's heart was a little hesitant. This was not the best time to make a move. If he made a move rashly, not only would it not have any impact on Qin Chuan, but it would also put him in a passive situation. The first time he made a move, Qin Chuan was not on guard and almost got hit. This time, it might not be the case. Just when Fei Yin was hesitating whether to make a move in advance or not, Qin Chuan had completed the final inscription. Looking at the array disc in his hand that was emitting amazing power fluctuations, Qin Chuan let out a sigh of relief. He looked at Niu Yao and Wang Wu, who were a little anxious in the arena, and grinned. It's almost over. All-round Thunder Prison, start. Following Qin Chuan's low roar, a gigantic array diagram suddenly appeared on the stage. Immediately after, endless heavenly lightning rolled over. Rumble. In the midst of the earth-shattering roar, the entire arena turned into a sea of thunder. All the sounds were drowned out by the roar of thunder, and the entire arena was illuminated with a deep blue color. When the thunder in the sky slowly dissipated, the whole world was quiet at this moment. Everyone looked at the arena for the first time. At this time, there was no one else standing on the arena except for Qin Chuan. Whether it was Fei Yin, who was hiding in the dark, or Niu Yao and Wang Wu, who were standing on the arena before, they were all lying on the ground at this time. Their bodies were charred and twitching. Obviously, they had no combat power. The second round of the 1-against-1,000 challenge still ended with Qin Chuan's victory. Amidst the enthusiastic and crazy cheers of the audience, Qin Chuan did not accept the host's interview. Instead, he directly left the arena. Some things could only be said once. If he said it too many times, it would be a little boring. Seeing Qin Chuan turned around and left, although the host was very reluctant, but he had no other choice. He could only hope that he would still be able to interview Qin Chuan in the next time. In the private room, Yao Rao looked at Qin Chuan's back view as he left confidently. She couldn't help but curl her lips and said, "This guy is really too arrogant, too pretentious, as if he is very powerful. Didn't he just defeat 5 guys with average strength? What's so great about that?" Hearing Yao Rao, Ma Jiawen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The other party won the duel and still didn't allow him to pretend. Besides, he wasn't that pretentious, right? "Princess, do you think Qin Chuan can still pass the next round?" Ma Jiawen said to Yao Rao with a smile. This time, Qin Chuan won again. The opponents he will face in the next round will definitely be stronger. Moreover, there will be 10 people. Of course he will win, Yao Rao said without any hesitation. Before I see him display his full strength, I don't think anyone can defeat him. His full strength? Ma Jiawen was somewhat surprised. Could it be that this is still not his full strength? That surging heavenly thunder, that astonishing sword move. If these were not Qin Chuan's full strength, then how strong would his full strength be? I only have this kind of premonition. I also don't know what his specific strength is. In the carefree secret territory, do you think he didn't have any backup plan? Yao Rao deeply looked at Ma Jiawen. This guy is hiding even deeper than we thought. Ma Jiawen, however, had a puzzled look on her face. Was Qin Chuan really hiding so deep? On the other side, seeing Qin Chuan win again, Zhong Qiyu couldn't help but reveal a smile on her charming face. She really didn't misjudge him. "Housekeeper, how do you think Qin Chuan compared to that person of that year?" After hearing her question, Uncle Zhong thought for a little bit, then honestly replied, "Slightly inferior." "Slightly inferior?" Zhong Qiyu pursed her lips and said, I think he is better than him. After all, when that person made a name for himself here, he was already at gold core stage, and now Qin Chuan is only at foundation establishment late stage. In terms of reputation, he is better than him. Madam is right. Uncle Zhong didn't argue. Since Zhong Chuyu felt that Qin Chuan was good, then Qin Chuan was good. After Qin Chuan took photos with some of his crazy fans, he returned to the box. He was about to joke with Lion Duke, but Lion Duke's face was serious, without any smile at all. Seeing the expression on Lion Duke's face, Qin Chuan was somewhat puzzled and asked, What's wrong? I have already asked for you. The next match will be in 5 days. During this time, you have to go to a place with me. Lion Duke looked at Qin Chuan. Your performance makes me think that I have overestimated you before. If you continue like this, you won't be able to pass the next level. Chapter 507. If someone else had said this to Qin Chuan wouldn't have listened. But since it came from Lion Duke, Qin Chuan had to take it seriously. He believed in the vision of a demon king, and he believed in the decision of a demon king. Lion Duke took Qin Chuan out of Mountain Town and into the depths of Mountain Town. They flew for tens of thousands of miles. When night fell, Lion Duke came to a stop and slowly landed on the ground. With the help of the moonlight, Qin Chuan could clearly see that there was a huge canyon below them. The canyon was very deep, and he couldn't see the bottom. The cliffs on both sides were very steep, but they were flat like mirrors. It was very strange. Lion Duke took Qin Chuan to the edge of the cliff. He looked at the canyon below them and said to Qin Chuan, Do you know what this is? Qin Chuan was stunned, and then he said, This is a canyon. This is a canyon, but you should know that a long time ago this was a flat land. Lion Duke pointed into the distance and said to Qin Chuan, Look over there. Qin Chuan looked in the direction Lion Duke was pointing. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his eyes. It was as if something very sharp had pierced his eyes. He couldn't help but cry out in pain. The pain came and went quickly. In just a few moments, Qin Chuan's face had turned pale. His forehead was covered with sweat, and his body was trembling slightly. It was as if he could not stand properly. Lion Duke wasn't surprised to see Qin Chuan's situation. He asked Qin Chuan, Do you feel it? Qin Chuan nodded. He panted slightly and replied, That's sword intent. Yes, it is. Lion Duke looked at the canyon in front of him and said to Qin Chuan, Now you know how this canyon was formed, right? Hearing Lion Duke, Qin Chuan couldn't help but think of an image. A blurry figure slashed out with a sword, and the sky changed color. The ground cracked, and a canyon appeared. Pah! Lion Lord slapped Qin Chuan's head and woke him up. Then he said to Qin Chuan, If I hadn't slapped you, you would have died here. Qin Chuan patted his chest and said, Thank you. There is no need to thank me. Since I brought you here, I will ensure your safety. Lion Duke looked at Qin Chuan and said, Do you know who left this sword mine behind? Qin Chuan shook his head. Just now, he only saw a blurry figure and did not see the person's appearance. Lion Duke looked at Qin Chuan and said, That person has a very famous name. His name is Su Inha. Sword God Su Inha. Qin Chuan looked at Lion Duke in shock. He then looked at the canyon in front of him. He thought of countless possibilities, but he never thought that this canyon was created by Sword God Su Inha. Sword God Su Inha, on the day his Milky Way sword transformed into a Tao weapon, went straight into the land of the shifters. He killed dozens of shifter commanders and 4 shifter kings. This angered the shifter king, and he chased Su Inha to this point. Su Inha couldn't stand it anymore, so he turned around and slashed out of the canyon, scaring the shifter king away. 1,000 years have passed, and Su Inha is no longer here. But the sword mind he left here has not dissipated. Countless swordsmen have come here because of its fame, but only a few can look directly at it. Since you can stay awake when you first saw the Milky Way sword intent and did not faint on the spot, it means that you are qualified to comprehend it. Hearing what Lion Duke said, Qin Chuan was shocked. He asked me, Comprehend the Milky Way sword intent? That's right. Lion Duke nodded and said to Qin Chuan, "In a last battle with Shiyu and today's battle, you have displayed very strong sword moves. However, although your sword moves are strong, they are not supported by the sword mind. You may not be able to see anything at this stage, but when you face stronger enemies in the future, your sword moves will not be useful." Qin Chuan nodded in agreement. He had just started learning swordsmanship not long ago. In addition, there were many things that he had to do. Therefore, he had no time to comprehend the sword intent. As a result, his sword moves only had the form but not the intention. Although they looked strong, they were actually weak inside. "Big cousin, what you said is very reasonable, but the sword mind should not be so easy to comprehend, right?" Qin Chuan looked at the canyon in front of him with some hesitation. "Moreover, the Milky Way sword intent is not my own. Maybe it is not suitable for me. If you can think of this, why can't I?" Lion Duke laughed and explained to Qin Chuan, "A 1,000 years have passed, and the remnant of Su Inha's will in the Milky Way sword intent has disappeared. Only the purest Milky Way sword intent is left. Anyone can comprehend and transform it into their own sword mind. It's just that very few people can really comprehend this sword mind in the past 1,000 years. So fewer and fewer people come here until no one cares. But we only have 3 days." Although Qin Chuan felt that he was very talented and excellent, he was never arrogant enough to think that he could comprehend the Milky Way sword intent left by sword god Su Inha in just 3 days. "You don't think I want you to comprehend the Milky Way sword intent in 3 days, do you?" Lion Duke laughed. "Although I admit that you are a genius, I never thought that you could comprehend the Milky Way sword intent in 3 days." Qin Chuan was a little confused. "Then what's the purpose of us coming here?" After laughing, Lion Duke looked at Qin Chuan seriously and said, "Although you can't comprehend the Milky Way sword intent in 3 days, it's enough for you to sharpen your sword heart. Without the sword heart, how can you activate the sword intent? To comprehend the sword intent, one must first have the sword heart." Qin Chuan looked at the canyon in front of him thoughtfully. This was indeed a very suitable place to sharpen the sword heart. "If there are no other questions, then let's start." Lion Duke patted Qin Chuan's shoulder. "Sharpen the sword heart first, then gather the sword intent. Then, your swordsmanship can be considered to have reached a higher level." Mountain City, Zhong Mansion. Zhong Qiyu sat on the sofa and looked at Uncle Zhong with a subtle look. She asked, "Butler, have you found out the identity of the person beside Qin Chuan?" "Not yet." Uncle Zhong shook his head. "I can only see that he is from the monster clan, not the human clan. I can't see anything else." Zhong Qiyu heard this and said thoughtfully, "Qin Chuan and this person came to the border mountain from the Star Dragon Federation together. But this person is from the monster clan. A monster clan member who wants to hide well in the Star Dragon Federation must at least be a high-level monster commander. If Qin Chuan knows that he is from the monster clan, it's okay. But if Qin Chuan doesn't know, then Qin Chuan may be in danger. Go and find them. Mobilize our people. We must find them. I want to make sure that Qin Chuan is safe." Chapter 508. 3 days had passed in the blink of an eye. Qin Chuan sat cross-legged at the edge of the canyon with his eyes closed. He seemed to be in a dream. Not far away, Lion Duke saw Qin Chuan's current state and nodded with satisfaction. He whispered, "Not bad. You've honed your sword heart in just 3 days. You're a genius." In fact, Lion Duke brought Qin Chuan here to hone his sword heart. He didn't think that Qin Chuan would succeed. He could only say that Qin Chuan's talent in swordsmanship exceeded his expectations. Once he honed his sword heart, Qin Chuan would be able to comprehend the Milky Way sword will. After some more training, he would be able to transform the Milky Way sword will into his own sword will. At that time, Qin Chuan would become more well-rounded, and his combat power would skyrocket. Just as Lion Duke was thinking about these things, Qin Chuan finally woke up from his drowsy state. He slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were clear and bright, as if there was a galaxy made up of countless stars flowing in his eyes. It was extremely gorgeous. Phew! Qin Chuan opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of turbid air. He then stood up and looked at Lion Duke not far away. He smiled. Big cousin, it's done. It's done. Then let's go. It won't be long before the third round begins. Lion Duke laughed. I hope we won't be late. Big cousin, not only did I hone my sword heart, but I also seem to have obtained other opportunities. Qin Chuan looked at Lion Duke. I seem to have inadvertently absorbed a trace of the Milky Way sword will. Lion Duke was stunned. It was the first time he had heard of such a thing, but it sounded like a good thing. In Mountain City, there were still 2 hours before the third stage of the competition began. The arena was already packed with people. The streets and alleys were all talking about this battle. The most talked about topic was the name list of the gatekeepers for the third stage. Compared to the list of gatekeepers from the previous round, the list this time was not luxurious, but overall, it was stronger. This was because the gatekeeper this time was from the Lianshan stronghold. The Lianshan stronghold was most famous for their joint attack technique. The more people there were, the stronger their joint attack technique would be. There was once when 3 foundation establishment stage cultivators joined forces to fight against a golden core stage cultivator without being at a disadvantage. This time, as the gatekeeper, the Lianshan stronghold sent out a joint attack formation consisting of 10 foundation establishment stage cultivators. Although these 10 people were only in the middle stage of foundation establishment, they had once seriously injured a golden core cultivator when they joined forces. They had made a great name for themselves in the World Mountain. Therefore, the audience was looking forward to this battle. They all wanted to see if Qin Chuan could defeat the so-called invincible 10-man combination. While everyone was discussing this matter, Zhong Qiyu finally received news that Qin Chuan and Lion Duke had returned. Madam, Qin Chuan and that person are back. According to our people's observation, Qin Chuan's spirit has undergone a great change compared to 3 days ago. After investigation, we can confirm that they went to the Sword God Gorge thousands of miles away in the past 3 days. Sword God Gorge? Zhong Qiyu looked at Uncle Zhong in surprise. That person took Qin Chuan to comprehend the Milky Way sword intent? Judging from Qin Chuan's performance, it shouldn't be to comprehend the sword intent, but to sharpen his sword heart. Uncle Zhong said to Zhong Qiyu, in the previous 2 battles, Qin Chuan didn't show his sword intent. I think he hasn't comprehended it yet. Moreover, the Milky Way sword intent in the Sword God Gorge isn't so easy to comprehend. What you said makes sense. I took it for granted. Zhong Qiyu said thoughtfully, in that case, this person isn't a bad person. At least, he's not bad to Qin Chuan. Otherwise, he wouldn't help Qin Chuan sharpen his sword heart. Zhong Qiyu and Uncle Zhong both watched the whole process of Qin Chuan's previous 2 battles. Although Qin Chuan's sword moves were very strong, there was no sword intent. They could naturally see that Lion Duke took Qin Chuan to sharpen his sword heart to improve Qin Chuan's strength. If Lion Duke wanted to harm Qin Chuan, there was no reason to help Qin Chuan improve his strength. In addition, we have a new discovery. There are other people who are also paying attention to Qin Chuan. Uncle Zhong looked at Zhong Qiyu with a strange look and said, it's 2 young monster clan women. Zhong Qiyu couldn't help but be stunned. She asked curiously, Monster Clan women? Uncle Zhong nodded his head. I haven't investigated their specific identity, but they are acquainted with arena manager Fierce Bull. Moreover, Fierce Bull thinks highly of them. Zhong Qiyu looked at Uncle Zhong with a subtle look and said, be careful, keep an eye on them. If they don't have any malice to Qin Chuan, then don't worry about them. But if they want to harm Qin Chuan, then deal with them secretly. Princess, we seem to be being watched. Ma Jiawen looked at Yao Rao with dignified look and said to Yao Rao, I found out that someone is secretly following us. Yao Rao slightly narrowed her eyes and asked, do you know who it is? I don't know. Ma Jiawen shook her head. We don't have any manpower here, so it's not easy to investigate. I want to borrow the power of Fierce Bull to investigate those people. Okay. Yao Rao nodded her head and said, pay attention. If the other party doesn't have any malice, then there's no need to fight. We came here to watch the competition, so there's no need to have unnecessary conflict. I know. Ma Jiawen nodded her head. But if you let them know your identity, don't worry, in World Mountain, I don't think anyone has the guts to fight with me. Yao Rao confidently smiled. I think no one would be willing to see Father Emperor come out of the mountain. Lion Duke brought Qin Xuan and arrived at the arena box. He looked at Qin Xuan and asked, Do you have acquaintances here? Qin Xuan was startled for a moment, then shook his head and said, This is the first time I came here. How could I have acquaintances? What, could it be that someone knows me? That's not it. Lion Duke shook his head and said, It's just that recently there are a lot of people around us, and they are intentionally or unintentionally monitoring us. Qin Xuan somewhat doubtfully looked at Lion Duke, then asked, Is it possible that they are sent by your old enemy? Lion Duke looked at Qin Xuan as if he was looking at an idiot, then asked, You think my old enemy will send some Foundation Realm people to monitor me? Demon King? In the end, are they stupid, or am I stupid? What you said makes sense. Qin Xuan felt that he was thinking too much, so he said, Is it possible that they are sent by the arena to monitor us? The people of the arena have been monitoring us since the first day. These people just appeared the day before yesterday, so they shouldn't be the same group of people. Lion Duke thought for a moment, then shook his head and said, Forget it, don't think too much. Anyway, no matter what they want to do, as long as I am here, there won't be any problem. You can go to the arena with peace of mind. Chapter 509. Walking in the corridor leading to the arena, Qin Xuan was still thinking about what Lion King had just said. He had only been in Jia Mountain for a few days, but he had already been targeted. For Qin Xuan, this was not a good thing. He came here to train himself, not to make enemies. Maybe my performance in these 2 battles was too good, so I attracted some people's attention. Qin Xuan murmured. This was the only possibility he could think of at the moment. Otherwise, he really couldn't figure out who would secretly target him. Fortunately, Lion King was by his side. If not for him, he was afraid that he would have to wait for the other party to take the initiative to notice that something was wrong. By then, it would be too late. Mr. Qin, the opponents you will face today are from Lianshan Village. They are known as the 10 Complete Cultivators. They are 10 Foundation Establishment Cultivators who are good at joint attacks. The staff of the arena was introducing Qin Xuan to the guards with a smile. However, Qin Xuan waved his hand and motioned for the staff to stop. No need to say more. Qin Xuan glanced at the staff. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. The battle will be over soon anyway. The staff was slightly stunned when he heard this. When he wanted to say something, Qin Xuan had already walked to the arena. When Qin Xuan's figure appeared on the arena, the noisy scene suddenly burst into cheers. They were crazily shouting Qin Xuan's name, not because they worshipped Qin Xuan, but because they bet heavily on Qin Xuan and wanted to reap huge benefits from it. Qin Xuan was well aware of this, so he didn't care about these cheers at all. The more enthusiastic these people were towards him now, the worse they would be when he lost the battle. Of course, he didn't think that he would lose. After Qin Xuan stood on the arena, a minute later, the cultivators of Lianshan Village, who were known as the 10 Complete Cultivators, began to enter the arena. When Qin Xuan saw these 10 people for the first time, he couldn't help but be surprised because these 10 people were too similar from height to appearance. If he didn't look carefully, he would even think that they were 10 twins. Of course, only people like Qin Xuan who didn't know about Lianshan Village would be surprised. Those who knew about Lianshan Village knew that the people of Lianshan Village would be raised together when they were born. From clothing, food, housing, transportation, and cultivation methods, they would be highly unified. After a round of selection, Lianshan Village would find people who were extremely similar in all aspects to form a group. The smallest group would only have 2 people, and the largest group would have 10 people. Qin Xuan was now facing the most famous 10-person group of Lianshan Village, the 10 Complete Cultivators. Qin Xuan, we've seen your previous battle videos. You're very strong. The 10 people of Lianshan Village spoke in unison, and their tone was calm, but were also very strong. You have to be careful. Hearing the words of the 10 Complete Cultivators, Qin Xuan couldn't help but be surprised. These 10 people actually spoke in the same voice and speed. Thank you for your reminder. I'll be careful. Qin Chuan glanced at the 10 people of Lianshan village and suddenly asked curiously, "What are your names?" "We are the 10 complete cultivators." Woo woo woo. As the voice of the 10 complete cultivators fell, the horn of the arena sounded. Without any communication, the 10 complete cultivators adjusted their positions very naturally, forming a formation of 4 in the front, 4 in the back, and 2 in the middle. Qin Chuan stood where he was and didn't take out a talisman pen or a disc array. He just put his right hand on the hilt of the long sword at his waist. Buzz! When the horn sounded, the 10 complete cultivators immediately rushed toward Qin Chuan in unison. Facing the charging 10 complete cultivators, Qin Chuan closed his eyes slightly, took a deep breath, and then pulled out the long sword at his waist. As the sword was unsheathed, the sky above the arena suddenly turned silvery white, as if there were countless dazzling stars slowly moving about. It was dazzling and enchanting, and under this enchanting scenery, there was an astonishing, killing intent hidden. Zhong Qiyu stood in front of the window and looked at the Milky Way in the sky with shock in her eyes. She cried out involuntarily, "It's actually the Milky Way sword essence." Uncle Zhong's face was also full of shock. This aura and this feeling were exactly the same as what he felt in the Sword God Canyon. How'd he do it? Zhong Qiyu couldn't believe it. She was sure that Qin Chuan hadn't comprehended sword essence at all before. He didn't even have sword heart. But in just a few days, Qin Chuan had already comprehended Milky Way sword essence. Even if Su Yinhe were to do it all over again, she might not be able to comprehend Milky Way sword essence in 3 days. Could it be that Qin Chuan was a sword Dao genius rarely seen in 1,000 years? Oh my God, this is Milky Way sword essence? I'm not seeing things, right? Li Kun looked at the Milky Way in the sky with a dumbstruck expression as if he had seen a ghost. Blue River's expression wasn't any better than Li Kun's. From what he knew, Qin Chuan wasn't a sword cultivator. But if Qin Chuan wasn't a sword cultivator, who would dare to call themselves a sword cultivator? Why do I remember that Qin Chuan is a talisman array master? Li Kun looked at Blue River with a slightly confused expression. When he attacked me with his sword that day, I didn't feel any sword essence. Hearing this, Blue River smiled bitterly and said, "I don't know either. I can't understand him. This person really can't be measured with common sense." Blue River really couldn't understand. Qin Chuan wasn't even 20 years old yet. Not only did he have to study the Tao of talisman arrays, he also had to cultivate, and he also had to comprehend sword intent. Where did he get so much time and energy? Could it be that there really was such a talented person in this world who could learn everything and be proficient in everything? He couldn't understand. He really couldn't understand. What did I say? What did I say? I said that this guy definitely had a trump card. Yao Rao pointed at the Milky Way outside the window and said to the dumbstruck Ma Jiawen on the side, "Do you see it? What an astonishing sword essence. Have you seen it in the carefree secret territory?" Ma Jiawen subconsciously shook her head. In the carefree secret territory, she had never seen Qin Chuan arouse sword essence. Even that time, when he killed Consul Qin Chuan with his sword, he didn't reveal sword essence. From this, it could be seen that Qin Chuan really hid it too deeply. "Princess, Qin Chuan is so patient. Are you really sure you can make him surrender?" Ma Jiawen looked at Yao Rao with a complicated expression, hoping that Yao Rao would think twice before acting. Yao Rao chuckled after hearing this and said calmly, "Think about it. He hid it so deeply, but he still couldn't hide it from me. Do you think I can't make him surrender?" Seeing the confident expression on Yao Rao's face, Ma Jiawen knew that no matter what she said now, Yao Rao wouldn't listen. If she said more, not only would Yao Rao not be grateful to her, it would instead arouse Yao Rao's disgust. At this moment, she could only give up and hope that Yao Rao wouldn't suffer a loss in the hands of Qin Chuan in the future. Chapter 510. When the Milky Way slowly dissipated, the scene in the arena once again appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Qin Chuan was still standing there, and his posture had not changed from before. However, Shi Quan was tightly hugging each other. His expression was extremely ferocious, as if he had suffered a great blow. Upon closer inspection, none of the Shi Quan was awake. All of them were in a state of unconsciousness. This meant that Qin Chuan had completed the third challenge and won the duel once again. When they realized this, the audience couldn't help but reveal a look of shock on their faces. They all exclaimed. Although they had thought that Qin Chuan would win, they had never thought that Qin Chuan could actually kill all of them in one move. Even a cultivator in the early stage of the Gold Core realm would have to retreat when facing the combined battle formation of the Shi Quan. They would try their best not to confront the Shi Quan head-on. Didn't that mean that the power of Qin Chuan's sword just now was already stronger than the full strength attack of a cultivator in the early stage of the Gold Core realm? Just thinking about it made everyone feel a sense of horror. Now, Qin Chuan, who was only in the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm, could exert the full strength attack of at least the early stage of the Gold Core realm. Wouldn't it be even more terrifying when he reached the peak of the Foundation Establishment realm or advanced to the Gold Core realm? At this time, if Qin Chuan, who was standing in the arena, knew what the audience was thinking, he would probably laugh out loud. He could only use this Milky Way sword intent once. By chance, when Qin Chuan was sharpening his sword heart, he inadvertently absorbed a trace of the Milky Way sword intent in the Sword God Canyon. The reason why the attack, just now, had such a terrifying power was that he had released that trace of Milky Way sword intent. One had to know that this was the sword intent left behind by the Sword God Suinha. Even if it was only as thin as a strand of hair, it was enough to kill all of them in one move. If Qin Chuan had not shown mercy, all of them would have been dead by now. What a pity. It's really a pity. How good would it be if he could kill all of them in one move? The audience was having fun, but Qin Chuan was now regretting it. If he had known that such a trace of the Milky Way sword essence would be so powerful, he would not have used it now. Unfortunately, it was too late to say anything now. Amidst the cheers of the audience, Qin Chuan slowly left the ring and walked towards the corridor. He did not have the consciousness that he should enjoy the cheers of the audience as the winner. It could be said that he was quite self-centered. However, in the eyes of some people, this scene was especially dazzling. "Kid, is this the unexpected gain you told me about?" Lion Baron looked at Qin Chuan strangely. At that moment, he felt as if Su Inha had been reborn. The sword mind was the same as the sword mind of Sword God Canyon. "It is indeed an unexpected gain," Qin Chuan said to Lion Baron seriously. "I think maybe we should go to Sword God Canyon again. Maybe this unexpected gain can become a permanent gain." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lion Baron understood what Qin Chuan meant. He asked, "You want to absorb a trace of the Milky Way sword essence and store it?" Qin Chuan nodded and said yes. "Since there's a first time, I think there should be a second time. As for whether it will succeed or not, we will have to try to know. In addition, I just asked the staff of the arena. The next battle will be in 5 days. We have more than enough time. Since you want to try, we will go again. But you have to know that the Milky Way sword essence is extraordinary. You were able to absorb a trace of it before, and that is your luck. If you can't do it the second time, don't force it. Otherwise, if an accident happens, I may not be able to save you." Lion Duke didn't want to watch Qin Chuan die in the Sword God Gorge and become one of the thousands of pilgrims' bones. In the face of Lion Baron's kind reminder, Qin Chuan smiled and said, "Don't worry. I will never joke about my own safety." Just as Qin Chuan and Lion Baron were preparing to go to Sword God Canyon to learn the sword mind again, the city in the mountain was boiling again. Qin Chuan's victory over Shi Quan was within everyone's expectations. However, the way Qin Chuan defeated Shi Quan was completely out of everyone's expectations. According to the description of the audience, the first thing that came to everyone's mind was the Milky Way sword intent. The Sword God Canyon was the product of Su Inha's fight against the Demon Emperor. It had always been a famous tourist attraction in Jia Mountain. Many people had gone to the Sword God Canyon and personally experienced the power of the Milky Way sword essence. Some people died on the spot, while others were lucky enough to survive. This thrilling experience also became the capital for them to brag about. In recent years, although there were not many people who went to the Sword God Canyon, the legend of the Sword God Canyon had been circulating. Now, the legend had become a reality and was displayed in front of everyone. When they heard that Qin Chuan had wielded the Milky Way sword essence, countless swordsmen in the mountain rushed to the Sword God Canyon without stopping to see if there were any changes in the Sword God Canyon. Otherwise, Qin Chuan, an outsider, would not be able to learn the Milky Way sword essence in less than 10 days after coming to Jie Mountain. Just as the swordsmen were rushing to spread the news and went to the Sword God Canyon together, the deity Sword Villa in the Star Dragon Federation also received the news that the Milky Way sword essence had reappeared. Deity Sword Villa, Sword Mountain. Su Miao stood outside the cultivation room and looked at the closed door with a complicated expression. She was hesitating whether she should tell Su Kuang this news or not. If she did, it might cause a great blow to Su Kuang's confidence. But if she didn't, Su Kuang would know sooner or later. Maybe he would blame her for deliberately hiding it. Just as Su Miao was worried about these things, the door of the cultivation room suddenly opened. Su Kuang's figure appeared in front of Su Miao without warning. There is a monitor in the cultivation room. I saw that you have been standing at the door for 10 minutes. Why don't you come in? Su Kuang looked at Su Miao with puzzled eyes, waiting for her answer. Hearing Su Kuang's words, Su Miao hesitated for a moment and then said to Su Kuang, "Senior brother, there is something about Qin Chuan. I don't know if I should tell you." Su Kuang raised his eyebrows slightly and asked, "Why? Has the Qin family already made a move on Qin Chuan?" "No." Su Miao shook her head and said, "I just got the news that Qin Chuan is no longer in the Star Dragon Federation. He went to the border mountain." And, seeing Su Miao hesitating, Su Kuang frowned and asked, "He went to the border mountain? And what?" Su Miao looked at Su Kuang with a complicated expression. Finally, she stopped hesitating and said, "And he seemed to have gone to the Sword God Canyon and comprehended the Milky Way sword essence." Hearing Su Miao's words, Su Kuang's pupils couldn't help but suddenly shrink. His face showed a touch of disbelief. Chapter 511. These days, Qin Yiming had been tortured to the brink of insanity. Because of Qin Haoshuan, the Qin family was now branded as Zerg traitor. If Qin Chongshao hadn't come out of seclusion in time and intimidated everyone with his nascent soul cultivation, the Qin family would have been overthrown a long time ago. The only way to restore the Qin family's reputation was to let Qin Chuan return to the Qin family and use Qin Chuan to kill Zerg's vanguard to offset Qin Haoshuan's betrayal. This way, the others wouldn't have an excuse to continue attacking the Qin family. Only then could they successfully extricate themselves from this mess. However, the crux of the problem was that they couldn't contact Qin Chuan at all, nor could they find Qin Chuan. During this time, they had sent dozens of envoys to the Black Moon Combat Academy, wanting to meet Qin Chuan. However, they were all rejected by Ningya with the excuse that Qin Chuan was cultivating with Ning Zhongtian. They dared to disturb Ningya, but they didn't dare to disturb Ning Zhongtian. Just like that, the matter had been dragged on until now without a solution. This made Qin Yiming so anxious that his hair turned white. Just as Qin Yiming was sighing and thinking about how to solve the problem, Qin Hu's figure quietly appeared before him. He said in a low voice, "Master, there's news about Qin Chuan." Hearing Qin Hu's words, Qin Yiming immediately became spirited. He asked, "What's the situation?" Qin Hu looked at Qin Yiming with a strange expression. He replied, "According to reliable sources, Qin Chuan isn't in the Star Dragon Federation right now. He went to the World Mountain." World Mountain? Qin Yiming was slightly stunned. He asked in confusion, "Why would he go to the World Mountain?" "The World Mountain is a place where good and bad people mix together. Why would he go there?" Qin Hu continued. The news said that Qin Xuan challenged 1,000 people by himself in the mountain city. However, this isn't the main point. The main point is that he seemed to have been to the Sword God Canyon and comprehended the Milky Way sword intent there. Milky Way sword intent. Qin Yiming was really shocked this time. He said incredulously, he has only learned swordsmanship for a few days, and he has already comprehended the Milky Way sword essence. Qin Hu nodded and said, in the Colosseum, more than 100,000 spectators saw Qin Xuan instantly kill his opponent with a single slash of his Milky Way sword intent. There's no mistake about it. When he first heard the news, Qin Hu was shocked as well. He found it hard to believe. Sword God Gorge had been around for over 1,000 years. Countless sword cultivators had gone there to comprehend the Silver River sword intent, but very few had succeeded. And yet, Qin Xuan, someone who did not know anything about the way of the sword, had managed to comprehend the Silver River sword intent in just a few days. If someone had not witnessed it with their own eyes, who would have believed it? Hearing Qin Hu's words, Qin Yiming could not help but fall silent. After a long time, he slowly looked up at Qin Hu and asked, is Qin Xuan really so talented? Every year, people from the deity Sword Villa would go to the Sword God Gorge to comprehend the Milky Way sword intent. However, only a few people had succeeded. Qin Yiming couldn't believe that Qin Xuan, a half-baked sword cultivator, could comprehend the Milky Way sword intent. Qin Hu laughed bitterly and said to Qin Yiming, I can't believe it either. Before I came to report to you, I had to confirm it multiple times before I dared to come. Send someone to World Mountain. Qin Yiming pursed his lips. Send someone to get in touch with Qin Xuan. No matter what conditions Qin Xuan offers, agree to them. As long as he is willing to return to the clan, we can give him everything. When Qin Hu heard this, he looked at Qin Yiming in surprise and confirmed, agree to all the conditions. As long as it doesn't take the lives of us old bones, we will agree to all conditions. Qin Yiming looked deeply at Qin Hu. This time, you have to represent me personally. My Qin clan has such a genius wandering outside. It really shouldn't be like this. Qin Xuan must return to the clan. Qin Hu had a serious expression and said in a deep voice, I understand. I will not let you down. That brat, why did he go to World Mountain? Ningya looked at the information in her hand, and her head was filled with question marks. Didn't he say he was going to the Yao clan to find a little girl to reminisce about old times? Why did he go to World Mountain and cause such a huge commotion? After thinking about it, Ningya still decided to go to World Mountain to check out the situation. Right now, who knew how many people were eyeing the consul's leg? She was worried about leaving Qin Xuan alone in a chaotic place like World Mountain. Just as Ningya was about to leave, her optical computer suddenly flashed. When she saw that it was Ning Zhongtian who sent the message, she couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. World Mountain. Qin Xuan and Lion Duke stood near the Sword God Gorge and looked at the row of cultivators sitting at the edge of the gorge. They were a little confused. What's going on? Qin Xuan scratched his head. 2 days ago, there was no one. Today it's full? Lion Duke looked at these people with a playful expression and said to Qin Xuan, they probably heard about you comprehending the Milky Way sword intent, so they couldn't help but come here to try their luck. Look, most of them are sword cultivators. Hearing Lion Duke's words, Qin Xuan chuckled. These sword cultivators' attainments in the sword Dao might not even be as good as mine. After all, not everyone is a genius like you. Lion Duke looked around and pointed at an empty space not far away. He said to Qin Xuan, let's go there. Okay. Qin Xuan agreed and walked toward the empty space. Just as Qin Xuan and Lion Duke walked toward the empty space, the nearby cultivators who weren't cultivating also saw Qin Xuan and Lion Duke and whispered, Qin Xuan is here. Qin Xuan is here. Let's go. When these people discovered Qin Xuan's target, they immediately rushed over and filled up the empty space, leaving not even a drop of water to trickle through. Qin Xuan couldn't help but be stunned when he saw this scene. He subconsciously stopped moving forward. When Lion Duke saw this, he laughed and said to Qin Xuan, this is just like the place where an internet celebrity punches a card. Now, you're the internet celebrity of Jia Mountain. Wherever you go, the crowd will follow. You have chosen this place to comprehend the sword intent. They will think that this is a good place and want to occupy it in advance. Qingchuan was a little speechless when he heard this. These people are too funny. Are they comprehending the sword intent, or are they here to try their luck? Lion Duke glanced at Qingchuan and said, "In their eyes, you can comprehend the Milky Way sword intent in a short time. Isn't that just luck? Since you can try your luck, they can naturally do it too." Qingchuan couldn't help but roll his eyes and said to Lion Duke, "What you said really makes sense. I'm speechless. Okay, let's go forward. The closer we go, the stronger the sword intent pressure will be. Ordinary people won't choose that place." Lion Duke patted Qingchuan's shoulder and said, "That place is more suitable for comprehending the Milky Way sword intent. You should be able to hold on." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.